Chapter 446. In front of the Divine Predictor Pavilion. Chu Kuangren's arrival had attracted a lot of discussion. At that moment, the door of the Divine Predictor Pavilion opened and a green-robed child slowly walked out. Upon seeing Chu Kuangren, he bowed and greeted him. "Esteemed guest, my teacher invites you in for a chat." The child looked at Chu Kuangren curiously. Although he was still young, he was not completely ignorant of the outside world. He had grown up hearing about Chu Kuangren's name. He was very curious about this person. When he first saw Chu Kuangren in person, his heart skipped a beat. This person was just too good-looking. "Thank you." Chu Kuangren smiled. Under Hao Yu's lead, Chu Kuangren and Lan Yu walked into the Divine Predictor Pavilion that no one had been able to enter for years. The people on the street were shocked. He really went in. Hao Yu even came out to greet him personally. It seems like the Divine Predictor values this person more than I expected. Not long after Chu Kuangren entered the Divine Predictor Pavilion, many people began to gather around the Divine Predictor Pavilion, almost surrounding it. These people were armed with weapons and had ferocious qi circulating around them. The pedestrians quickly retreated when they saw this. What a ferocious group of people. What are they doing here? Of course they're here for Chu Kuangren. He's now wanted by the 6 top-notch orthodoxies. There are too many people who want his life. How dare they parade around like this? I have to give it to them. Chu Kuangren had no idea what was happening in the outside world. After entering the Divine Predictor Pavilion and passing through a few corridors, he and Lan Yu came to a large hall where the Divine Predictor was sitting. "Brother Chu, I trust you've been well." "Greetings, Senior Predictor." Chu Kuangren smiled. The few of them casually sat in the hall. The Divine Predictor's eyes flashed with a mysterious Daoist rhyme as he looked at Chu Kuangren and said, "I didn't expect Brother Chu to have such an opportunity of fortune. The heavenly punishment seal is a blessing and not a curse to you." As one of the most enigmatic people in the firmament star, the Divine Predictor had his own unique techniques. Others only knew that Chu Kuangren had been struck by the heavenly punishment seal and his cultivation level was sealed, but the Divine Predictor had noticed something else. But this was something else that made his heart palpitate. It could only be said that he was indeed an anomaly that even he couldn't figure out. Chu Kuangren chuckled and said nothing. He had indeed gained many benefits from the heavenly punishment seal in his body. It was just that he had yet to fully reveal them. "Senior, I'm afraid that placing me at the top of the Soaring Dragon leaderboard will cause me a lot of trouble," Chu Kuangren suddenly said. "Oh, you're afraid of trouble?" "Heh, that's not it." Chu Kuangren chuckled. He didn't have anything urgent to discuss with Tianjizi. He just happened to pass by and wanted to catch up. The two of them talked for a while. During this period, Tianjizi told him many things. For example, the 9 heavens and hell. Another example would be those forbidden prodigies who weren't on the hidden dragon list. Chu Kuangren had gained a lot from their conversation. He had learned quite a lot of secrets from the Divine Predictor, which might help him in the future. "I've gained a lot this time." "Thank you, Senior Tianji." "Heh, fellow Daoist Chu, there's no need to be so courteous. Your path is still very long. I'm just a guide for you," Tianjizi said meaningfully. Chu Kuangren pondered. To him, Tianjizi was very mysterious. He knew a lot of things and it seemed like there was nothing in this world that he did not know. Every time they met, Chu Kuangren would always gain something. It was as if Tianjizi would tell him something at the right time. It was not wrong to say that Tianjizi was showing him the way. "Heh, I'll take my leave then." Chu Kuangren chuckled and stopped thinking about it. Looking at his departing figure, Tianjizi smiled and then turned around to look at the great hall behind him. "It's time for me to leave too. I've stayed here for 3 years, and I've done everything I can." "Teacher, are you leaving? Will we meet again?" Hao Yu Tongzi was a little reluctant. "Heh, we'll meet again if fate allows it." Tianjizi smiled. His figure gradually became illusory and eventually disappeared into the void. "Farewell, teacher." Hao Yu Tongzi knelt on the ground and said. Chu Kuangren left the Divine Predictor Pavilion. More than a dozen different auras locked onto him the moment he stepped out of the door. Each of them was at the level of a sage. The street in front of the Divine Predictor Pavilion was already deserted. Obviously, the others had long known that something would happen here. Afraid that they would be caught in the crossfire, they had already run away. Chu Kuangren smirked. Yo, more than a dozen sages. It's been a long time since I've seen such a big scene. Are they all here to kill me? His voice was not loud, but it was clearly audible. The sages who were hiding in the void walked out one by one. Chu Kuangren glanced around. These are all unfamiliar faces. I can't believe there are so many sages in this world during my absence. That's good too. I was afraid that there would be no more sages to kill when I come out. His last sentence was like a biting cold wind that blew into everyone's hearts. Although this person in front of them did not have the slightest spiritual power fluctuation, the sages still felt a chill that made their blood run cold. Chu Kuangren, don't blame us. If you want to blame someone, blame yourself for being too arrogant. This era has no place for you. One of the sages said loudly. He was one of the sages who became a sage in recent years. Compared to some of the older sages, he was not that afraid of Chu Kuangren. After all, he had never faced Chu Kuangren before. That's right, Chu Kuangren. You have 2 emperor weapons, but you don't have any cultivation. Do you really think that you can live in peace with the reputation you've accumulated in the past? Dream on. Hand over the emperor weapons, and we'll allow you to commit suicide. At least we'll save you some face. Otherwise, don't blame us for doing it ourselves. A few more sages said. Some of the older sages could not help but feel their eyelids twitch. *CK me. They had never dared to speak to Chu Kuangren like that. Even if he did not have any spiritual power fluctuations, the impression he had left on them was too deep. It's been a long time since someone dared to speak to me like that. Chu Kuangren murmured. Then, he lifted his arm and mystical runes condensed into a golden greatsword. He then aimed it at one of the sages who was the most aggressive. The runic sword pierced through the air. The piercingly cold sword-based Daoist rhyme locked onto that sage. He roared and channeled the spiritual power in his body to unleash a punch. When the sword and the fist collided, that sage screamed in pain. The runic sword pierced through the sage's chest and pinned him to the wall. A single sword strike had killed a sage. The sage's pupils shrank when they saw Chu Kuangren's terrifying strength. How powerful! *CK me, is this guy's cultivation really sealed? The sages said in shock. Don't think too highly of yourselves. Even if Chu Kuangren has the heavenly punishment seal on him, he's still not someone an ordinary sage can fight against. Everyone, let's attack together. A great sage yelled. Then, the sages charged forward and unleashed all sorts of Daoist rhymes and energies towards Chu Kuangren. Chapter 447. Dozens of sages charged at Chu Kuangren and unleashed all sorts of energies. Chu Kuangren stood still as golden runes circulated around him. Each of them was a sage-grade rune. These runes intertwined and formed a runic light barrier. The sages' attacks could not even scratch the barrier. Go all out. One of the sages shouted. Instantly, surges of sage Daoist rhymes erupted. Some of them took out their sage weapons while others activated their sage techniques to attack the runic light barrier. However, all the attacks that landed on the runic light screen only caused a few ripples. It was of no use at all, and Chu Kuangren was not hurt at all. How dare you guys come after me with only this much strength? I wonder what gave you the courage to do so. Chu Kuangren shook his head and said. Then, he raised his hand and channeled his spiritual thoughts. In an instant, the surrounding wind and clouds surged as a huge amount of spiritual chi gathered and formed into runic swords that hung in the sky. We were too careless. I can't believe this guy still has such combat strength. The terrifying runic aura pressed down on every sage like a mountain, causing them to be extremely terrified. Chu Kuangren shouted. In an instant, the runic swords fell like raindrops. The entire street was enveloped by the runic aura. The great ones who were observing from the shadows were speechless. When the runic aura dissipated, all that was left on the street were the corpses of the sages. Only one person was left standing among the corpses, trembling in fear. That sage had just used a technique from the craggy ocean tower. Hence, Chu Kuangren had purposely avoided him with the runic swords. Of course, it was not because he was being compassionate. You're a sage of the craggy ocean tower, right? Go back and tell the current craggy ocean tower lord that I'll be visiting them personally in 2 days. This time, I won't just be paying them a visit, but I'll also annihilate them. Those in the craggy ocean tower who don't wish to die, let them leave on their own. Chu Kuangren said. At the same time, a mysterious rune appeared in the void and turned into a ray of golden light that was injected into the sage's body. What did you do to me? The sage asked in fear. Just a small gift for the craggy ocean tower lord. Chu Kuangren then turned around and left. The sage did not dare to stay any longer and quickly left. There were only corpses of sages left on the street. After a while, people came over one after another and started fighting over the corpses. 4 cultivators below the sage realm, the corpses of sages were priceless treasures. In the past, Chu Kuangren might have cared a little. However, now that he had killed saints like slaughtering dogs, what use did he have for corpses? Unless it was the body of a great emperor, otherwise, even if the body of a saint ruler was placed in front of him, he probably would not care. I've underestimated him. I never thought that he would be able to display such strength with the Tao of talismans. Unbelievable. Someone's coming. At this moment, someone said in surprise. Then, everyone saw a golden light flying over from afar. This person had a handsome appearance and a tall figure. He wore a golden robe that was gorgeous and extraordinary, and he emanated a noble aura of supremacy. It's him, the 11th on the hidden dragon list, Xiao Lintian. Why is he here? Of course he's here for Chu Kuangren. That guy has the heavenly golden imperial physique, but he was suppressed by Chu Kuangren a few years ago. It would be strange if he didn't come back for revenge. The crowd discussed among themselves. When Xiao Lintian arrived at the scene, he looked at the sage corpses on the ground and grinned. Chu Kuangren, it seems that you're not completely crippled yet. Very well, now you're worthy enough for me to defeat you. He recalled the humiliation of being repeatedly defeated by Chu Kuangren 3 years ago, and a vicious look appeared in his eyes. This time, I must trample you under my feet in front of everyone. To fulfill this wish, Xiao Lintian did not immediately challenge Chu Kuangren to a duel after he found out that he was in the Divine Predictor City. If he wanted to defeat Chu Kuangren in front of everyone, he would have to first build an arena for everyone to witness the battle. Inside the Four Seas restaurant, Qian Fugue was entertaining Chu Kuangren. Brother Chu, I knew you wouldn't give up after this setback. As expected, you've gone on a killing spree as soon as you came out. Qian Fugue laughed. Boss Qian, I heard that your business has been booming recently, and you even have dealings with those top-notch orthodoxies. Chu Kuangren chuckled. The Four Seas firm was the largest firm in the firmament star, but the situation had changed in recent years. With the emergence of many major forces, these forces needed to make a name for themselves and expand their orthodoxies. Naturally, an organization like the Four Seas firm that held a huge amount of wealth became the target of these forces. Later on, under the guidance of the Divine Predictor, not only did Qian Fugue survive the crisis, but he also brought the firm to greater heights. Not at all, it's just a small business. Qian Fugue chuckled. He said, I heard that Brother Chu is planning to visit the craggy ocean tower. I've had dealings with them over the years, so I have some information about them. Although I can't be of much help, I'd still like to share it with you. Oh, I'm all ears. Ever since the previous craggy ocean tower lord died in the Black Heaven sect, the craggy ocean tower lord before him took over. He was also a sage ruler. Inside the craggy ocean tower, a disheveled figure dashed into the grand hall. Tower Lord, bad news. That sage was the one that Chu Kuangren had released. He rushed into the grand hall and quickly informed everyone about Chu Kuangren's impending arrival. After hearing what he said, everyone's expression changed drastically, and they were unable to restrain their anger. B****. This Chu Kuangren is such a B****. If he dares to come to the craggy ocean tower, I'll teach him a lesson. The elders of the craggy ocean tower scolded. Only the craggy ocean tower lord was deep in thought. You said that Chu Kuangren placed a rune on your body and said it was a gift. Yes. The sage nodded in confusion. Suddenly, his expression changed, and his body began to swell up like a rubber ball. What's going on? I don't know. Oh no, retreat. The craggy ocean tower lord shouted. However, he was still too late. With a scream, the sage's body exploded, and a huge amount of energy swept out and filled the entire grand hall. Everyone's expression changed as they were injured by that energy. A mysterious rune appeared in the center of that energy. That rune absorbed the sage's blood mist and condensed into a blood-colored word that read, "Battle," in the air. Chu Kuangren, what a gift! The craggy ocean tower lord gritted his teeth and said. Chu Kuangren had sent them a letter of challenge. Every craggy ocean tower disciple could see the boundless domineering aura that emanated from the blood-red word, battle, that floated in the air. They could vaguely sense that the craggy ocean tower was about to face an unprecedented calamity. If they could not overcome it, the craggy ocean tower would cease to exist. Tell all disciples to prepare for battle. The craggy ocean tower lord took a deep breath and said, Sect leader, there's no need to make such a big fuss. Let me go and take his head. A newly ascended sage said arrogantly. Idiot! The craggy ocean tower lord yelled. I said, tell all disciples to use all their strength and prepare for battle. Sect leader, is there a need to make such a big fuss? The newly ascended sage asked in confusion. Yes, that's Chu Kuangren we're talking about. The craggy ocean tower lord gritted his teeth and said. Chapter 448. The streets of the Divine Predictor City were deserted. It was snowing heavily that day, and the sage corpses on the streets were all gone. Not a single drop of blood was left behind. Coupled with today's heavy snow, other than some dilapidated buildings in the surroundings, no one knew that a great battle had taken place yesterday. At the end of the street, a man and a woman were slowly walking over. The man was wearing a cape, and the woman was holding an umbrella for him. The two of them arrived at the Four Seas restaurant. Qian Fugue quickly came out to welcome them. Brother Chu, you're here. Spus. The weather is a bit cold today, so it's perfect for a hot pot. Give me a double hot pot. Chu Kuangren smiled. Sure thing. Qian Fugue said, but his eyes were filled with uncertainty. Is Brother Chu really cold? You can kill sages so easily, why would you be afraid of this little bit of temperature? However, he did not ask any further and ordered someone to prepare the hot pot. Chu Kuangren found a seat and sat down. Lan Yu put away the umbrella and closed the window to prevent the wind and snow from entering. The diners around them did not say anything. They looked at Chu Kuangren with uncertainty as well. This guy is too weird. He's so powerful, but he's acting so cold now. Does he really not have any cultivation? Soon, the hot pot was served. Chu Kuangren looked at the hot pot in front of him and smiled. What a treat to eat hot pot in this kind of weather. It was true that he did not have any cultivation, and it was also true that he was cold. However, it was all intentional. He could use his mind power to isolate the cold, but that would make the hot pot less tasty. Just as Chu Kuangren was enjoying his meal, a voice suddenly echoed throughout the entire Divine Predictor City. Chu Kuangren, do you dare to show yourself and fight me? The cold voice was accompanied by a terrifying burst of energy. The snowstorm intensified, and the howling wind blew open the doors and windows of the restaurant. Snow and wind immediately rushed in, adding to the chill. The hot pot in front of Chu Kuangren was suddenly covered with a layer of snow. This is killing my appetite. He sighed helplessly. Lan Yu got up and closed the doors and windows. Master, you stay here and eat. I'll go out and see what's going on. All right. Chu Kuangren nodded. Lan Yu left the restaurant. The eyes of the surrounding diners flickered as they whispered to each other. I didn't mishear that voice just now. It's Xiao Lintian from the Heavenly Golden Palace. He's really here to challenge Chu Kuangren. Xiao Lintian has made great progress in the past few years. He just crossed the tribulation a year ago, and his combat power is stronger than most great sages. I wonder what will happen when the two of them fight? Can that Lan Yu handle it? Chu Kuangren paid no attention to the comments of the crowd. In his eyes, there was only the boiling soup in front of him, at the top of a tall building in Tianji City. Xiao Lintin stood there proudly with a peerlessly overbearing aura emanating from his body. His Daoist rhymes circulated as if he had become the center of this world. In the dark, many spiritual senses were watching him. The heavenly golden imperial physique is indeed extraordinary. Even a third or fourth step great sage can't compare to such an aura. I guess only a 7-step great sage can suppress him. Moreover, he hasn't become a sage yet. If he becomes a sage, he will be even more terrifying. Yeah, too strong. The heavenly golden imperial physique was ranked second among the 3,000 Daoist physiques. Since ancient times, countless people had dreamed of such a physique. As long as one did not die prematurely, they had an 80% chance of becoming an emperor. Although Xiao Lintian's acquired heavenly golden imperial physique was flawed, he was undoubtedly the strongest among the younger generation in Firmament Star, excluding Chu Kuangren and the 9 Heaven Sky Prides. Chu Kuangren, today I shall fulfill my biggest wish of the past 3 years. I shall defeat you with my own hands. Xiao Lintian murmured. He was extremely excited at the thought that his wish was about to come true. At that moment, a series of light footsteps could be heard. Xiao Lintian looked over and saw a silver-haired lady in a gorgeous silver-white armor walking over the snow with a cold expression. Everyone was surprised to see her. Lan Yu was no stranger to them. After all, she had been a young emperor since a long time ago. She had been by Chu Kuangren's side all these years, so everyone knew that she was a top-notch Sky Pride. However, this Sky Pride rarely fought, so her combat strength was unknown. Especially when facing a Sky Pride like Xiao Lintin, who even most great sages could not handle, could she really do it? Lan Yu, where's Chu Kuangren? Xiao Lintian frowned and asked. Lan Yu's expression was cold as she said, My master doesn't have time to deal with you. I'll deal with you. Then, the scepter of light was already in her hand. An incredibly dense light-based Daoist rhyme spread out like a tidal wave. Her cultivation level had also reached the boundary sage level. The auras of 2 Sky Prides with supreme Daoist physiques clashed, shattering the surrounding snow and causing the entire street to tremble. Do you think you're worthy to be my opponent? Xiao Lintian said coldly with disdain in his eyes. The holy radiant physique was indeed a supreme Daoist physique, but it was still a distance away from the second-ranked heavenly golden imperial physique. Do you think you're worthy to be my master's opponent? Lan Yu retorted. Forget it. I'll defeat you first, then I'll drag Chu Kuangren out myself. Xiao Lintian snorted. 3 years ago, you were like a dog in front of my master. 3 years later, if not for the heavenly punishment seal, I'm afraid you wouldn't have dared to challenge him even if you were given 10 times the courage. At the end of the day, you're just a coward. Lan Yu's words were like a sharp knife that pierced deeply into Xiao Lintian's heart, causing his expression to instantly become unsettled. He had to admit that Lan Yu was right. If Chu Kuangren was not sealed, he would not have dared to come here even if he was given 10 times the courage. The reason why he was so confident was because he was certain that Chu Kuangren's combat strength was not as strong as his. However, knowing was one thing, saying it out loud was another. Xiao Lintian was furious. You're asking for it? Then he instantly attacked with a punch. The domineering aura instantly locked onto Lan Yu. His first attack was an extremely powerful boundary emperor technique. Lan Yu did not back down. She waved the scepter of light in her hand and unleashed a burst of light-based Daoist rhyme. She had also unleashed a boundary emperor technique. Moreover, her boundary emperor technique was of the light attribute, so it resonated with her holy radiant physique and unleashed a powerful burst of power. It was her self-created boundary emperor technique. Over the past 3 years, she had drunk many Dao enlightenment teas. Coupled with some other resources, she had entered the state of Dao enlightenment many times. This boundary emperor technique was self-created while she was in the state of Dao enlightenment. Boom! The two forces collided, and Lan Yu was pushed back a few meters. The silver-white armor on her body shimmered with light-based Daoist rhyme and mysterious runes, easily dispelling the impact. Master's enchanted runes are indeed powerful. Lan Yu smiled as she felt the power of the armor on her body. This armor was originally a top-notch supreme weapon. However, Chu Kuangren had strengthened it with runes some time ago, so it was no weaker than a sage ruler weapon. Again, Lan Yu yelled and took the initiative to attack. As the two sky prides fought, the snowstorm intensified. Chapter 449. Boom, boom, boom. Violent energy continued to sweep out as the holy light Daoist rhyme and the heavenly golden imperial physique's domineering Daoist rhyme continued to clash. The surrounding snow and wind shattered one after another, turning into white mist that filled the sky. The cultivators who were secretly observing were all shocked. I didn't expect Lan Yu to be able to fight Xianxia to this extent. She's too strong. No wonder she was once the strongest young emperor. However, the heavenly golden imperial body is ranked second among the supreme Daoist bodies. I'm afraid the holy light body is no match for it. Physique enhancement is part of it, but a cultivator's own control over the Dao body and cultivation techniques are also very important. More and more people were watching the battle. Among them, there was no lack of cultivators who had rushed to the divine predictor city after hearing that Chu Kuangren had appeared. Most of them were sky prides of the younger generation. For example, the Empyrean walker who lived under Chu Kuangren's shadow 3 years ago. Guishan, you're here too. Chu Kuangren has appeared in the divine predictor city. How can I not come? But why is Lan Yu fighting Xianxia? Where's Chu Kuangren? I don't know. Let's just watch the battle first. Since Lan Yu is here, then Chu Kuangren must be here too. The group of Empyrean walkers gathered together and conversed. Meanwhile, the battle between Lan Yu and Xianxia was getting more and more intense. The light Daoist rhyme and the heavenly lord Daoist rhyme gradually rose to their peaks. The two of them seemed to have become the center of this world. A terrifying light-based Daoist rhyme flowed around Lan Yu, and a dazzling white light bloomed, making her look like a valkyrie. The surrounding female cultivators couldn't help but pale in comparison. She held the scepter of light, and a huge white fireball gradually formed on the top of the scepter, like a small sun. In front of her, a heavenly venerate Dharma idol appeared behind Xianxia. Endless overbearing pressure seemed to want to suppress the heavens. Lan Yu, to be able to fight with me to this extent, you are not weak. You will definitely have a place in the top 20 of the hidden dragon rank. It's a pity that you met me, Xianxia said proudly. He raised his hand and gathered the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. The celestial master Dharma power behind him followed suit and slowly raised its arm, clenching its fist. I'll defeat you first, then I'll defeat Chu Kuangren. Xianxia shouted coldly as he raised his hand and punched out. A powerful gust of wind swept through the area, shattering all the buildings in its path. The punch was aimed at Lan Yu, as if it could destroy everything in its path. Lan Yu wielded the scepter of light and swung it. A white fireball shot out like a meteor and landed on the heavenly reverend's Dharma form's fist. With a loud bang, the two forces exploded, and a terrifying shockwave turned into a storm that swept out. The spectators all around retreated. Is it over? With such a powerful force, it's about time to determine the victor. Everyone stared at the center of the energy. There was a person standing on the roof of a tall building. He stood there proudly, exuding a domineering aura. It was Xianxia. As expected, Lan Yu is still not a match for Xianxia. There is still a certain gap between the holy radiant physique and the heavenly golden imperial physique. Moreover, Xianxia's own cultivation level is not weak. Other than those monstrous sky prides from the 9 heavens, there aren't many sky prides in the world who can compare to Xianxia. The heavens' favorites looked at each other. They were not surprised by this result. Meanwhile, Xianxia stood with his hands behind his back with a condescending look on his face. Now that Lan Yu has been defeated, it's your turn, Chu Kuangren. He looked into the distance and got up to leave. However, at that moment, a chuckle suddenly rang out from within the smoke. A bright white light flashed, and a white spear pierced through the void like a bolt of lightning towards Xiao Lin. The sudden change made Xiao Lintian's expression change. He raised his hand and threw out a punch at the white spear. With a boom, the long spear exploded right away. A terrifying force swept out, sending Xiao Lin flying out. On his fist, there were a few more bloody scars. He looked at the smoke angrily. When the smoke dissipated, a faint white light circulated around Lan Yu's body, and a black veil covered her. You haven't even defeated me, and you're already thinking of going against Master. Are you out of your mind? Lan Yu sneered. The crowd was shocked to see her veil. Is that a Boundary Emperor weapon? I can't believe Lan Yu has a Boundary Emperor weapon. It's this veil that blocked Xiao Lintian's attack. I can't believe she has such a treasure. A Boundary Emperor weapon was extremely important to any top-notch orthodoxy, just like a sage ruler. Even the top-notch sky prides on the Soaring Dragon leaderboard did not have a Boundary Emperor weapon. Such an opportunity of fortune was too rare. As for the Boundary Emperor weapon in Lan Yu's hand, it was actually the Boundary Emperor weapon that Li used to infiltrate the Black Heaven sect. It was also because of this black veil that Chu Kuangren felt assured to let Lan Yu fight Xiao Lintian. She could not hurt her at all. Using a Boundary Emperor weapon? Despicable. Xiao Lintian snorted. Lan Yu could not help but laugh. You took advantage of Master's heavenly punishment seal to challenge him. How dare you call him despicable? You! Xiao Lintian was rebuked until he was speechless. However, he soon forgot about it. I can't hurt you with a Boundary Emperor weapon, but you're no match for me either. You can't stop me from going after Chu Kuangren. He did not want to tangle with Lan Yu anymore. Since she had a Boundary Emperor weapon, he could not hurt her, and she was not his main target. The person he wanted to defeat was Chu Kuangren. Oh, you're looking for me? At that moment, an indifferent voice resounded. The great ones who were secretly observing the battle and the spectating sky prides could not help but shiver as they looked towards the source of the voice. Amidst the snowstorm, a white-robed young man with a gorgeous longsword strapped to his waist stepped on the snow. His handsomeness was unparalleled as he approached with an umbrella. Xiao Lintian's aura was domineering as if he was the center of the world. However, when this person appeared, it was as if the world was about to collapse before him even though he did not have any spiritual power fluctuations on him. Compared to him, Xiao Lin was like a foil. It's him. It really is him. Among the crowd of Empyrean walkers, Feng Yaorao could not help but be excited. After 3 years, this person was still so extraordinary. His face had not changed at all, but it still amazed her. Chu Kuangren. He's here. He's finally here. The Great Ones and Sky Prides looked solemn. Chu Kuangren. You're finally here. Xiao Lintian's eyes lit up when he saw the person in front of him and noticed that he did not have any spiritual power fluctuations on him. He was extremely excited as if he could already see himself stepping on Chu Kuangren to avenge himself. As for whether he could do it or not, he did not doubt it at all. He knew that Chu Kuangren could use runic power, but with the heavenly punishment seal on him, how strong could he be even if he could use runic power? Besides, he was no longer the person he was 3 years ago. Chu Kuangren walked to Lan Yu's side with the umbrella. She put away her black veil and took the umbrella from him to shelter him from the snow. Xiao Lintian could not help but laugh out loud in the snowstorm. Chu Kuangren, have you fallen to such a state? Even a small snowstorm scares you? Looks like you've really become a useless mortal. Chapter 450. Looks like you've really become a useless mortal now. Xiao Lintian's maniacal laughter echoed, and the surrounding sky prides looked at Chu Kuangren thoughtfully. Was Chu Kuangren really not going to return? Phew, Chu Kuangren rubbed his hands and let out a breath. How cold, especially after hearing that lame joke. Chu Kuangren, even if you've become a useless mortal now, don't even think about forgetting the humiliation you've brought me in the past. He lowered his stance, took a step forward, and unleashed a powerful punch. The domineering fist energy surged like a golden torrent, but it was blocked by a runic barrier when it got close to Chu Kuangren. The surrounding sky prides were stunned. I knew it, he has some kind of runic technique. How did he do it? Runes also required spiritual power to activate, but Chu Kuangren had no spiritual power at all, yet he could easily activate tens of thousands of runes. That was something that no one could understand. The blizzard is a force that originates from nature. Chu Kuangren reached out his hand and the snowflakes melted on his palm. He chuckled. I can't believe there are people who would underestimate the blizzard and nature. It seemed like he was talking to Xiao Lintian, but it also seemed like he was talking to everyone else. As soon as he finished speaking, the blizzard around them intensified. It was 10 times or even 100 times stronger than before. The sudden change shocked everyone present. What's going on? Can Chu Kuangren control the blizzard? I've heard people say that runes are the power to simplify the Daoist rhymes of heaven and earth. In other words, it's the power to control nature. It's not surprising that Chu Kuangren can control the blizzard. But isn't this a bit too much? The blizzard that was 100 times stronger than before filled the sky, obscuring everyone's vision. They could not help but channel their spiritual power to resist it. Chu Kuangren and Lan Yu, on the other hand, stood where they were, unaffected. The blizzard automatically changed its direction when it approached them. Suddenly, Guisan exclaimed and looked at the sky. Everyone looked over and sucked in a breath of cold air. In the sky, dark clouds gathered and formed a huge black vortex. Within the vortex, runes appeared one after another, turning into a white sword of wind and snow. The sword of wind and snow, which was over 1,000 feet long, floated above everyone's heads. A terrifying chill swept through the world, causing everyone to shiver. The chill spread out, and all the rivers within 1,000 miles froze. What a terrifying chill! What on earth is the power of this sword? F***CK, if anyone dares to tell me that his cultivation is sealed, I'll slap his mouth. Is this what you call having no cultivation at all? Everyone on the scene was shocked. Especially the arrogant Xiao Lintian, whose face turned slightly pale because he was the target of the blizzard sword. Compared to the others, the pressure he felt was even more terrifying. How could this be? How did his runes reach such a level? Xiao Lintian's face was filled with disbelief. He channeled all of his spiritual power, pushed his heavenly divine imperial physique to its limit, and formed his divine honorable avatar. He looked up into the sky. Not only that, but a spiritual thought shot out from his body and turned into an old man in a golden robe. That old man was the current heavenly Golden Palace sect leader, sage ruler Changqing. What appeared now was a spiritual thought clone of his. What's going on? Sage ruler Changqing could not help but gasp at the sight of the 1,000-feet-long blizzard sword in the sky as soon as he appeared. Even he would have a hard time blocking that sword. Sect leader, it's Chu Kuangren. Xiao Lintian said loudly. Sage ruler Changqing looked at Chu Kuangren, who was wrapped in a cloak, and yelled, Chu Kuangren, stop it now. However, Chu Kuangren ignored him and spat out a single word. Boom. A large portion of the void seemed to be frozen by the chill. Endless snowstorms gathered on the blizzard sword that was formed by intertwining runes, and it suddenly fell. D***. Sage ruler Changqing could not care less anymore. He channeled the power of this spiritual thought clone to its limit and unleashed a palm attack. The palm chi turned into a golden torrent that surged towards the blizzard sword. In less than a breath's time, the golden torrent was eroded by the chill and was frozen into countless pieces of frost. How is this possible? Sage ruler Changqing's pupils shrank as he roared and channeled all his power. However, how much power could he, who was merely an incarnation of his spiritual will, exert? He could not block the sword of wind and snow at all. The sword chi landed on Sage ruler Changqing's body and shattered him. Xiao Lintian, who was left behind, roared and channeled his divine honorable avatar to its limit. Both of his hands gripped the blizzard sword tightly. However, the chill invaded the divine honorable avatar's arms and gradually froze the entire avatar. In the end, it turned into frost and disappeared. At the last moment, Xiao Lintian activated some kind of secret technique to forcefully increase his strength and break out of the blizzard sword's range. However, he was too close to the blizzard sword. When the sword landed on the ground, the entire divine predictor city trembled. The blizzard that swept out enveloped the entire area. Especially where Xianxia was, the blizzard runic power was so dense that it was almost solid. Even if he managed to escape the fate of being hit by the blizzard sword, he could not escape the fate of being frozen by the blizzard. Let's go. Chu Kuangren tightened his cloak and turned to leave. Lan Yu held the umbrella for him and followed closely behind. Master, where are we going next? Next stop, Craggy Ocean Tower. Chu Kuangren's voice drifted into everyone's ears along with the blizzard. When the blizzard's power gradually dissipated, everyone walked out and looked at Chu Kuangren's departing figure with fear in their eyes. That's terrifying. This level of runic Dao is just too terrifying. Look, someone exclaimed and pointed to a spot not far away. At the spot where the blizzard had dissipated stood an ice statue. That ice statue looked extremely lifelike with a horrified expression on its face. Is it Xiaolin? He's frozen. Everyone walked up to him. Feng Yaorao curiously reached out her hand to touch him. Then, as if she had been electrocuted, she instantly retracted her hand. It's so cold. Her fingers had already turned purple from the cold. If just a touch is so terrifying, then wouldn't the frozen Xiaolin be? Before Feng Yaorao could finish her sentence, everyone saw Xiaolin, who had been frozen into an ice statue, shatter into pieces of ice crystals. He was as dead as a doornail. Gulp, everyone could not help but gulp, and the fear in their eyes became even more intense. Even someone as strong as Xiaolin could not block Chu Kuangren's runic sword. Just how strong was that person? Why do I feel like he's even more terrifying now that he's sealed? Guisan said with a trembling voice. I think he said he was going somewhere? Craggy Ocean Tower. Everyone looked in the same direction. It was the direction of the Craggy Ocean Tower. They all knew that the Craggy Ocean Tower was about to face an unprecedentedly terrifying existence. Chapter 451. Heavenly Golden Palace. Inside a palace, sage ruler Changqin suddenly opened his eyes. His face turned pale as he stared into the distance. His eyes were filled with fear, and he even felt a chill down his spine. Chu Kuangren! Chu Kuangren! Why are you always against the Heavenly Golden Palace? You destroyed my spiritual will incarnation and killed the proud sons of heaven of my divine palace. This is not over. Their grudge with Chu Kuangren had reached an irreconcilable point. There was no possibility of reconciliation. We must pay close attention to Chu Kuangren's movements. He's going to the Craggy Ocean Tower soon, so we must keep an eye on him, sage ruler Changqin murmured. They had to figure out where Chu Kuangren's limits were. The Craggy Ocean Tower was an unknown land in the past. Now, it was one of the top orthodoxies in the firmament star. There was no lack of great sages and even saint kings among them. In the firmament star, no one dared to underestimate such an orthodoxy. But today, all the cultivators of this orthodoxy were on high alert as if they were facing a formidable enemy. Surrounding the Craggy Ocean Tower were countless ferocious Craggy Ocean bestial souls. There were tens of thousands of them, and their cultivation bases ranged from the Battle Monarch realm to the Honorable realm. There were even sages among them. This was the Craggy Ocean Tower's protective array, the Craggy Ocean Grand Array. The array was filled with Craggy Ocean bestial souls that the Craggy Ocean Tower had collected and refined over the years. There were many different types of monsters and beasts within the array. In one of the palaces of the Craggy Ocean Tower, the Craggy Ocean Tower Lord and the elders were gathered together. It had been 2 days since Chu Kuangren delivered the Crimson Challenge letter. If there were no accidents, the other party should be here by now. The entire Craggy Ocean Tower was on high alert. He's here. The Craggy Ocean Tower Lord suddenly said in a solemn tone. The elders beside him immediately looked into the distance when they heard him. Their gazes pierced through the clouds and landed outside the mountain gate of the Craggy Ocean Tower. They saw a man and a woman standing outside the Craggy Ocean Formation. These two people were Chu Kuangren and Lan Yu. He's finally here. I've been waiting for a long time. Today, let's make sure they don't return. A few elders said fiercely. In order to deal with Chu Kuangren's arrival, they had made many preparations. They believed that even a sage ruler would not be able to escape alive. As far as he knew, Chu Kuangren had no spiritual power and could not wield an emperor weapon. No matter how strong he was, he could never surpass the level of a sage ruler. Outside the craggy ocean tower, Chu Kuangren and Lan Yu arrived outside the mountain sea formation. What goes around comes around. Looking at the mountain sea formation before him, Chu Kuangren chuckled. In the past, they were the ones who came to destroy the Black Heaven Sex formation. Now, it's my turn to destroy theirs. It's a pity this formation isn't the astonishing Cloud of Seas formation, and I'm not them. The wind in the craggy ocean tower is really noisy today. Chu Kuangren lifted his foot and walked into the mountain sea formation. In an instant, dozens of mountain sea origin souls rushed forward. These bestial souls came in all shapes and sizes. There were jackals, wolves, tigers, and leopards, and each of them exuded a ferocious aura as they charged towards Chu Kuangren to devour him. Clang! The descendant self-sword at Chu Kuangren's waist automatically unsheathed itself. Sword chi sword, wreaking havoc in the void. One by one, the bestial souls were easily torn apart. Even without Chu Kuangren's control, the descendant self-sword was still a boundary emperor weapon with a sword soul. It possessed terrifying lethality. The descendant self-sword shuttled back and forth around Chu Kuangren, emitting sword chi like a blade storm. All the mountain sea origin souls that got close to it were easily torn apart. None of them could even get close to Chu Kuangren and Lan Yu. The two of them strolled towards the craggy ocean tower's grand hall. The further they went, the stronger the bestial souls became. In the end, even sage-level bestial souls appeared. Chu Kuangren shook his head and sighed. What a shame. If Lil Red were here, all she needed to do was bark a few times, and these bestial souls wouldn't dare to move. Lil Red was a godly phoenix, a divine beast. The domineering aura that came from her bloodline and soul was enough to make these mountain sea origin souls surrender. Well, it doesn't matter. Chu Kuangren chuckled. With a lift of his arm, the surrounding spiritual power converged and transformed into a giant golden sword. Violent runic sword chi dispersed, and wherever it went, the craggy sea bestial souls were shredded into pieces. That single sword strike wiped out all the bestial souls along the way. A huge path appeared before Chu Kuangren. Let's go. The two of them had a smooth journey. The elders of the craggy ocean tower were dumbfounded. The craggy ocean formation that they were so proud of was so fragile before Chu Kuangren. It could not even stop him for a second. He's much stronger than we thought. Is this Chu Kuangren's true strength? The craggy ocean tower members looked grim. By then, Chu Kuangren had arrived at the mountain entrance of the craggy ocean tower. There was no one guarding the entrance. Chu Kuangren used his spiritual thought and soon found that the craggy ocean tower members had gathered in front of the grand hall at the mountain peak. Are they trying to gather their forces and fight me to the death? Their courage is commendable. Too bad, it's useless. Chu Kuangren took a step forward and walked towards the mountain peak. There was a flight of bluestone stairs leading to the mountain peak. There were thousands of steps, and Chu Kuangren walked up like a mortal. Lan Yu followed closely behind him. On the mountain peak, the tens of thousands of craggy ocean tower disciples watched as Chu Kuangren made his way up. They did not dare to be careless. Meanwhile, Chu Kuangren was walking at a brisk pace as if he was just taking a stroll up the mountain. As time passed, Chu Kuangren got closer and closer to the mountain peak. In front of the grand hall, everyone's expression became more and more serious. The entire grand hall was so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. Everyone was nervously preparing for battle. A formless murderous aura enveloped the entire mountain peak. Suddenly, some of the craggy ocean bestial souls seemed to have sensed something and let out an uneasy growl. When Chu Kuangren was halfway up the mountain, a formless fluctuation emanated from his body. One by one, runes condensed around his body and transformed into runic swords. It was a golden runic sword that emanated a sharp aura. Chu Kuangren then took another step forward, and another runic sword was formed. It was an aqua-blue runic sword that surged with surging torrential force. Just like that, a runic sword appeared beside him every time he climbed up the stairs. The number of runic swords around him increased, and they even contained all sorts of natural Daoist rhymes. When Chu Kuangren was about to reach the top of the mountain, his surroundings were already densely covered with countless runic swords. There were fire runic swords, blizzard runic swords, mountain river runic swords, lightning runic swords, sun and moon runic swords. When Chu Kuangren officially reached the top, the boundless runic aura that emanated from the countless runic swords enveloped the entire mountain peak. All the craggy ocean tower disciples felt their mouths go dry when they saw the countless runic swords. It was as if 100,000 mountains were pressing down on them, making it difficult for them to move. There was only one person in front of them, but they felt like he was the entire world. What they were doing was making the entire world their enemy. When everyone was shocked by the countless runic swords before them, Chu Kuangren announced, "My name is Chu Kuangren. Today, I'm here to annihilate your sect with these runic swords." Chapter 452. Boundless Runic Swords, Boundless Nature's Domineering Aura. Chu Kuangren carried a sky full of runic swords that contained boundless nature's Daoist rhymes as he ascended the craggy ocean tower. All the craggy ocean tower disciples were ready to attack. All the great ones who were observing from the shadows were terrified. Kill! Without wasting any time, the craggy ocean tower disciples immediately attacked with all sorts of energy surges towards Chu Kuangren. Boundless energy turned into a monstrous torrent that shook the heavens and earth. However, Chu Kuangren stood his ground with a calm expression. "I am one with nature. How dare you go against the heavens and earth?" He gently moved his finger. In an instant, the sky full of runic swords behind him shot out. Thousands of them. Thousands of runes shot out like rain, and each of them contained an extremely terrifying pressure. The power of wind and frost, the power of lightning, and so on exploded with a loud rumble. They were wrapped in the Daoist rhyme of the sword and tore apart the torrent of energy. A disciple of the venerable realm roared as he stared at the runic sword flying towards him. A mountain and sea origin soul materialized from his body and rushed out with a roar. However, it was unable to obstruct the sword at all. Before the runic swords, his craggy ocean bestial soul was as fragile as a thin piece of paper and was easily torn apart. Even when he channeled his spiritual power to its limit, he still could not defend against the runic swords. With a boom, that disciple was torn into pieces by the sword chi. Even an honorable realm disciple was reduced to such a state. Not to mention the other disciples. In the face of the sky full of runic swords, they were like weeds. Wherever the runic swords passed, they were easily harvested. The elders of the craggy ocean tower were enraged by what they saw. "Chu Kuangren, how dare you?" One of the sages roared. He summoned a craggy ocean bestial soul and charged towards Chu Kuangren. However, it was futile. Chu Kuangren killed sages like he was killing dogs. Ordinary sages were no threat to him at all. A rune sword shot out fiercely. That runic sword was much stronger than the others. As soon as the sword chi passed through, the craggy ocean bestial soul and the sages were all killed. "Let's attack together." The sages of the craggy ocean tower roared. They then surrounded Chu Kuangren and released their craggy ocean bestial souls. Their bestial souls were much stronger than the others, and all of them possessed the combat strength of a sage. Including the bestial souls, there were as many as 20 sages surrounding Chu Kuangren. There were even 5 great sages among them. And the craggy ocean tower lord, the holy king, used the mountain river secret medicine. The craggy ocean tower lord said. He took out a pill and threw it to his mountain sea origin spirit. His origin soul was a golden rock. After the rock consumed the pill, its golden eyes gradually became bloodshot. With a long cry, its body began to expand, becoming 2 or 3 times larger. When its wings were spread out, they were hundreds of feet long and looked extremely imposing. The other elders also fed their mountain and sea source spirits a secret medicine, causing their source spirit's strength to wildly increase. The effects of this secret medicine were powerful, but after using it, these bestial souls would enter a long period of debilitation and would no longer be able to battle. However, in order to deal with Chu Kuangren, they did not think too much about it. Go! At his command, more than 10 extremely powerful bestial souls who had consumed the secret medicine charged towards Chu Kuangren. Their ferocious qi was so strong that it stirred up the winds and clouds. The runic swords around Chu Kuangren were unleashed. However, even though his rune swords were powerful and numerous, it was not easy for him to kill these origin souls who were comparable to great saints. With a move of his spiritual thoughts, the rune swords around him shattered and turned into mysterious runes. Then, they all gathered together to form a colorful sword of nature that contained infinite power. Go! The sword of nature swept out. Although the bestial soul's strength was comparable to a great sage's, it was still not enough against this sword. As the sword qi swept past, the bestial souls were easily crushed. Avarice Palm. Mystical Xianxia Palm. While Chu Kuangren was dealing with the bestial souls, the sages and sage rulers took the opportunity to attack. Their surging Daoist rhymes erupted and turned into a ferocious beast's palm energy. However, when the palm energy was about to land on Chu Kuangren, a black veil suddenly appeared and blocked the palm energy. It was Lan Yu. She had used her Boundary Emperor weapon to block all the attacks. It's a Boundary Emperor weapon. This guy has a Boundary Emperor weapon to protect himself. The Craggy Ocean Tower's sages were shocked. The Craggy Ocean Tower used to have a Boundary Emperor weapon too, which was the Craggy Ocean Scroll. However, 3 years ago, when the previous Craggy Ocean Tower Lord brought this item to the Black Heaven sect, the scroll was lost and ended up in Chu Kuangren's hands. I'll destroy this Boundary Emperor weapon. The Craggy Ocean Tower Lord roared as a surge of spiritual power and an extremely powerful Daoist rhyme appeared on his body. In an instant, 4 ferocious beast silhouettes appeared around him. They were the Qiong Qi, Avarice, and Taowu, the 4 chaotic beasts. These 4 beasts emanated an endless ferocious qi as they charged towards the Black Veil. Their terrifying strength was even stronger than the previous Craggy Ocean Tower Lords, causing the veil to tremble a few times. Chu Kuangren activated his spiritual thought upon seeing that. The surrounding spiritual qi surged and converged towards him. 4 golden rune swords manifested. 4 swords against 4 ferocious beasts. When the 2 forces collided, the entire mountain peak collapsed and the sea of clouds within a 1,000-kilometer radius rumbled and surged. One by one, the disciples were sent flying by the powerful energy. The sages could not help but channel their spiritual power to defend themselves. Chu Kuangren and the Craggy Ocean Tower Lord took the brunt of the impact. The Craggy Ocean Tower Lord was sent flying and spat out a mouthful of blood. However, Chu Kuangren stood his ground and did not budge an inch. The terrifying impact was completely nullified by the Black Veil. Is this all you've got? Chu Kuangren said indifferently. He gently lifted his arm, and the runic swords that covered half the sky once again condensed. A majestic pressure then enveloped everyone. Chu Kuangren, if you really destroy the Craggy Ocean Tower, aren't you afraid that the world will attack you for what you've done? The Craggy Ocean Tower Lord said loudly. Chu Kuangren could not help but laugh. The world will attack me? Heh, didn't I already do that? Since I'm no longer tolerated by the world, I won't tolerate them either. Let them come. I'd like to see what they can do to me. Chu Kuangren laughed as a terrifying surge of sword-based Daoist rhyme erupted from his body. It soared into the sky and swept across the land. Above his head, the runic sword seemed to be resonating with the sword-based Daoist rhyme, and the sound of the swords ringing echoed through the clouds. Everyone looked at the white-robed figure and gulped. One man dared to go against the entire world. What kind of courage and capability was that? So this is the Chu Kuangren who has been famous since 3 years ago. There's only one Chu Kuangren in history. The newly ascended sage who had previously declared that he would take Chu Kuangren's head was already pale. He had lost all will to fight. All the great ones who were secretly observing fell silent as well. It was the same 3 years ago, and it was still the same 3 years later, the entire world was suppressed by a single person. Chapter 453. Chu Kuangren, if you were born in my craggy ocean tower, I wouldn't mind kowtowing and burning incense for you every day. The craggy ocean tower lord suddenly said. He looked at Chu Kuangren with a complicated expression that was mixed with amazement and pity. The crowd was in an uproar when they heard him say that. They did not expect the craggy ocean tower lord to have such high regard for Chu Kuangren. Not only him, but the great ones who were secretly observing had similar thoughts as well. To them, Chu Kuangren was too outstanding. He was worthy of being called the first person in history. If such a person were born in their orthodoxy, it would be a great help to them. So what if they kowtowed to him and worshipped him like an ancestor? Too bad, you're not. That's why you and the craggy ocean tower are destined to fight to the death. The craggy ocean tower lord's eyes turned cold. He let out a long roar, and a surge of Daoist rhyme gushed out of his body and gradually enveloped the entire craggy ocean tower. Vaguely, a low roar came from the depths of the craggy ocean tower. The roar was like thunder that shook hundreds of kilometers. It also contained a strange energy that made the bestial souls of all the cultivators who heard it tremble. It was as if even their souls were shaken. A terrifying existence had been awakened. While everyone was still in shock, an even louder roar erupted. The mountains and rivers within a 10,000-kilometer radius trembled, and countless beasts fell to the ground. A terrifying ferocious chi spread out from somewhere in the craggy ocean tower. The great ones who were secretly observing were shocked. This aura is not to be underestimated. What is it? Chu Kuangren also looked into the distance curiously. It seems like the craggy ocean tower still has some tricks up their sleeves. He raised his hand to activate the rune sword in the sky and swung it. The runic swords rained down like a torrential downpour. Boom, boom, boom. The entire mountain range was reduced to ashes under the attack of the runic swords, and the billowing dust covered a 1,000-kilometer radius. Even a sage ruler might not be able to withstand such an attack. However, the roar did not stop. With a roar, a violent gust of wind swept out. The surrounding dust dissipated. A fierce beast-soar spirit appeared in front of everyone. This ferocious beast's entire body was crimson like a cheetah. Its eyes were like glazed crystals, it had 5 tails, and there was a single horn on its head. The breath it exhaled was like raging flames, burning the surrounding vegetation into ashes. When Chu Kuangren saw this bestial soul, he activated his Eye of Revelation. Compared to other abilities, the Eye of Revelation didn't need the support of spiritual power. The usage of this divine power relied more on spiritual power. In an instant, the beast's information appeared in front of him. Oh, an ancient ferocious beast from the firmament star. Its voice has a soul-sucking effect. It specializes in fire elemental Dao and is currently in the form of a bestial soul. Teeth, this is a real vicious beast source spirit. Chu Kuangren said in surprise. 3 years ago, when the craggy ocean tower was attacking the Black Heaven sect, they had summoned the gluttonous devouring beast, Xianxia, Taowu, and the chaotic 4 ferocious beasts. However, the craggy ocean tower had only imitated and refined the 4 beasts based on ancient records. They could not be considered as true bestial souls. But this hoe in front of him was a true vicious beast origin soul. Its cultivation level was as high as a sage ruler. As a wild beast, its combat strength would definitely surpass that of an ordinary sage ruler. Chu Kuangren estimated that it was on par with a 5-step sage ruler. Aside from boundary emperors, this was the strongest sage ruler Chu Kuangren had ever encountered. Even the serpent deity was no match for it. Chu Kuangren, this is a craggy ocean bestial soul hoe left behind by the craggy ocean tower's ancestors. Today I shall use it to kill you. The craggy ocean tower lord said loudly. A surge of Daoist rhyme flowed around his body, summoning the ferocious beast in the distance. The ferocious beast stepped through the air, its ferocious chi surging violently. Wherever it went, the void trembled. One by one, the mountains crumbled under the ferocious beast's charge. The craggy ocean tower's disciples were dumbfounded by its power. What a terrifying bestial soul. I can't believe our craggy ocean tower has such power. It was obvious that the Ho's existence was a top secret within the craggy ocean tower. Apart from the craggy ocean tower lord and a few elders, no one else knew about it. Soon, the Ho arrived on top of Chu Kuangren's head. Its crimson-red body exuded a powerful aura of oppression. Chu Kuangren raised his hand and condensed a runic sword before he slashed out. The runic swords rained down on the Ho's body, but they were all blocked by its ferocious chi. This Ho is a little tricky, Chu Kuangren murmured. The Ho opened its mouth and spat out a ball of scorching flames. The surrounding void was almost warped by the scorching heat. The craggy ocean tower's disciples who were close to the Ho were instantly incinerated. This is bad. Retreat. Get away from this place. The sages yelled. The Ho was a wild beast. Wild beasts, on the other hand, were ferocious by nature. Coupled with the fact that they had been refined into a bestial soul, they were even more vengeful. Although the craggy ocean tower lord was controlling them, all they cared about was getting rid of Chu Kuangren. They did not care about the lives of the other craggy ocean tower disciples. The flames landed on the black cloak, causing it to tremble. However, that power was not enough to break through the boundary emperor weapon's defense. Chu Kuangren raised his hand, and the surrounding spiritual power surged. Countless runes formed in the void, forming a giant runic sword. Dream on! At that moment, the craggy ocean tower lord made his move. He unleashed a punch and shattered the runes in the air. Chu Kuangren would need some time to condense a runic sword strong enough to kill the Meng beast. However, the craggy ocean tower lord and the Meng beast would not give him that time. Both sides were locked in a fierce battle. The Meng beast and the craggy ocean tower lord continued to attack the black cloak, trying to break through the boundary emperor weapon's defense. Meanwhile, Chu Kuangren unleashed his runic swords one after another. Although it was powerful, it was not enough to hurt his opponent. The battle was at a stalemate. Roar! At that moment, the Ho let out a furious roar. That roar contained a soul-stealing effect. Lan Yu was affected, and a gap appeared in the black cloak's defense, giving the craggy ocean tower lord an opening. The other sages also seized the opportunity. Quick now! All the sages attacked at once. Surges of Daoist rhymes erupted and surged towards Chu Kuangren, breaking through the black cloak's defense. However, at that moment, a runic barrier formed by intertwining runes appeared in front of Chu Kuangren. It emanated an indestructible Daoist rhyme. The sages' attacks landed on the runic barrier, but they were all blocked. What? Chu Kuangren is not affected by the Meng beast's roar. That's a spiritual attack. The sage's eyes shrunk in disbelief. The Ho's roar had a soul-stealing effect. Once it unleashed its full power, even the strongest sage would be affected. However, Chu Kuangren was not affected at all. Little did they know that Chu Kuangren had the conjurer talent, which allowed his spiritual thoughts to block out spiritual attacks. Coupled with his rock-solid Daoist core, he would not be affected even if the Meng beast's roar was 10 times stronger. Beside him, Lan Yu regained her senses and reactivated the black cloak to protect the two of them. She stared at the Meng beast cautiously. She guarded her mind against the Meng beast's next roar. However, the Meng beast only roared but did not attack again. It was obvious that the Meng beast's roar could not be used casually. It had some kind of limitation. Chapter 454. The ferocious roar was completely useless against Chu Kuangren. The craggy ocean tower lord and the others were shocked. After all, the ferocious roar was a direct attack that even a sage ruler could not resist. Such an ability could be said to be their biggest trump card against Chu Kuangren. However, they did not expect that it would be completely useless. The ferocious roar consumed a large portion of the chi's soul energy every time it was used. Hence, it could only be used once a day. Now that you guys have revealed your trump cards, it's my turn. Chu Kuangren said. He looked up into the sky. It's almost done. The crowd did not know what he meant, but they instinctively felt that something was wrong. They quickly looked up into the sky. In the sky, lines of mysterious runes crisscrossed and converged to form a gigantic mystical rune. This talisman blotted out the sky and covered the entire mountain peak. The crowd could sense an indescribable mysterious energy from the rune. It was as if the surrounding spiritual qi had been sucked dry. Fall! Chu Kuangren commanded. In an instant, the gigantic rune fell from the sky, and the crowd channeled their spiritual energies to resist it. However, when the rune landed on their bodies, they did not feel any damage at all. They could not help but feel confused. However, they soon realized that something was wrong. The space around them seemed to have been sealed by an unknown force, turning it into a huge quagmire. They could not even move a finger. This is a spatial rune. The most complicated spatial rune among all runes. How did he create a spatial rune that can seal even a sage? I can't believe his runic mastery has reached such a level. The sages at the scene looked terrified. Even the scarlet beast could not move under the pressure of the rune. This rune took a lot of my spiritual thoughts. Chu Kuangren chuckled. Then he raised his hand and formed runic swords in the void. They were like a sky full of stars that hung above everyone's heads. Surges of runic aura spread. The craggy ocean tower lord and the others channeled their spiritual energies to break free from the spatial rune's seal. However, the rune's power was too strong. Even a sage ruler would not be able to break free in a short amount of time. That time was enough for Chu Kuangren to destroy the entire craggy ocean tower. Chu Kuangren, stop. Stop right now. The craggy ocean tower lord roared in a frenzy. However, Chu Kuangren did not care about them at all. He raised his hand and pressed it down on the ground. Instantly, countless runic swords fell from the sky like falling stars, covering the entire craggy ocean tower. The deafening rumbles shook the surrounding area. This was especially true for the craggy ocean tower lord. Chu Kuangren paid special attention to the mountain peak where the menacing beast was. Most of his runic swords landed there. Everyone stared at Chu Kuangren, who was standing in the middle of a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood. His white robes were as clean as ever, and their hearts were shrouded in a thick sense of fear. A top-notch orthodoxy had been annihilated by a single person. After 3 years, Chu Kuangren had returned to the world. Even with the heavenly punishment seal on him, he had displayed even more terrifying combat strength. 5 more, Chu Kuangren murmured. His voice was not loud, but everyone could hear him clearly. Everyone knew what he meant by 5 more. He was referring to the remaining 5 orthodoxies. The great ones of the Acheron Manor, the bottomless chasm, the sacred palace of death, the ethereal rapture, and the heavenly golden palace were shocked. The craggy ocean tower had been annihilated. What about them? Would they be able to survive? No one knew, but no one dared to underestimate the heavenly punishment seal on Chu Kuangren anymore. They had to gather all their strength to deal with him. After annihilating the craggy ocean tower, Chu Kuangren cleaned up the battlefield. He went to the largest treasure vault in the craggy ocean tower and stored all the resources inside into his yin and yang ring. Then he found a chest in the treasure vault. Inside the chest were strange spheres with mysterious soul fluctuations circulating around them. Bestial soul seeds. Chu Kuangren's eyes lit up when he saw the chest of bestial soul seeds. Bestial soul seeds were the secret technique that the craggy ocean tower's cultivators used to summon the craggy ocean bestial souls into battle. Every cultivator who had refined the bestial soul seed would obtain a bestial soul as a battle companion. There were strong and weak bestial souls, but it was undeniable that this technique was extremely mystical. This chest of bestial soul seeds was also extremely valuable, and it could be considered the craggy ocean tower's greatest treasure vault. Let's bring this chest of bestial soul seeds back. When the time comes, Nangong Huang and the others can each pick one of them and keep them as pets. Chu Kuangren said with a satisfied smile. Chapter 455. The news of Chu Kuangren annihilating the craggy ocean tower spread like wildfire across the entire firmament star. Every cultivator who received the news was shocked. After all, that was a top-notch orthodoxy that had many sages guarding it. Yet now, it was gone just like that. It was single-handedly annihilated by a single person. Meanwhile, Chu Kuangren, who was already the center of attention, did not immediately head to the next orthodoxy for revenge after annihilating the craggy ocean tower. Instead, he brought Lan Yu with him and disappeared. All those who wanted to track down his whereabouts had not succeeded. Inside the heavenly golden palace, sage ruler Changqin was extremely worried. Chu Kuangren's strength is much more terrifying than I thought. It won't be easy to kill him now. Sigh, sage ruler Changqin sighed. At this point, he was starting to blame the previous heavenly golden palace lord. Why did you go and provoke that monster? Now, he had to deal with this problem himself. Sage ruler Changqin was so worried that his hair had turned white. At this moment, an incredibly powerful aura suddenly erupted from one of the mountains in the heavenly golden palace. It was as if a heavenly venerable had descended and swept across the entire heavenly golden palace. Not only that, but the terrifying aura continued to spread. In the blink of an eye, it had spread across half of Firmament Star. All the great ones on Firmament Star were shocked and looked towards the direction of the heavenly golden palace suspiciously. This aura... Someone is about to become a sage. Such a powerful sage aura. All the great ones activated their spiritual thoughts and scanned the direction of the heavenly golden palace. Soon, they locked onto the source of the aura. On one of the mountains in the heavenly golden palace, a gust of wind blew and clouds surged. Rays of light appeared in the sky and formed into a colorful tribulation cloud. A colorful tribulation cloud. Since Chu Kuangren 3 years ago, a colorful tribulation cloud had appeared. All the great ones were shocked. Following that, a young man with sharp eyebrows and starry eyes slowly walked out from one of the caves on the mountain peak. It's the young master. The young master has come out of his closed-door meditation. Not only that, but he's also going to ascend. The elders of the heavenly golden palace were excited. Not only them, but even sage ruler Changqin was excited. It's Xiao Jingchen. The Sky Pride ranked 3rd on the Soaring Dragon leaderboard, a Sky Pride from the 9 heavens. Rumor has it that this person was a Sky Pride from the heavenly golden palace tens of thousands of years ago. However, he entered the Misty Sea, a forbidden land, and no one has heard from him since. However, 3 years ago, he suddenly returned from the 9 heavens, declaring that he would fight for the throne of this world. Correct. Rumor has it that this person slaughtered saints like dogs. A year ago, he went into seclusion, and now that he has come out, he wants to become a saint. He actually caused such a commotion. It's the Rainbow Heavenly Tribulation. This is the 2nd time I've seen a Rainbow Heavenly Tribulation since Chu Kuangren. Can this person really fight against Chu Kuangren? Let's wait and see. Xiao Jingchen stood proudly under the heavenly tribulation. The Daoist rhymes of the heavenly golden imperial physique circulated, and it was incomparably domineering, as if it could suppress the heavens. Compared to Xiao Lin, his heavenly golden imperial physique was even more terrifying, and this was the true perfect heavenly golden imperial physique. 7-colored heavenly tribulation? Interesting. Since ancient times, only a handful of people have been able to overcome the 7-colored heavenly tribulation. I, Xiao Jingchen, am one of them. Xiao Jingchen murmured as his eyes lit up. Tens of thousands of years ago, he went to the forbidden area, the misty ocean, in search of an opportunity to become an emperor. However, to no avail. Instead, he entered the 9 heavens through the spatial rift there and joined a powerful orthodoxy. However, even in the 9 heavens, tens of thousands of years ago, it was still the Dharma-ending era. In order to fight for the throne of this era, he chose to hibernate. He only woke up not long ago. The throne of this era belongs to me. Even the 7-colored heavenly tribulation can't stop me. Xiao Jingchen said, his body as straight as a sword. Boom. At that moment, the first tribulation lightning struck. Xiao Jingchen threw out a punch and forcefully broke through the tribulation lightning in an extremely domineering manner. The terrifying strength of his punch shocked everyone. The second, third, fourth, as the tribulation lightning's strength increased, so did his fist energy. It was like a bottomless pit, so deep that one could not see the bottom. Everyone was in awe. Is this the true strength of the heavenly golden imperial physique? Compared to him, Xiao Lintian's strength is nothing. Is this the power of a sky pride from the 9 heavens? He's too powerful. Xiao Jingchen was in high spirits as he faced the 7-colored heavenly tribulation. He laughed loudly. The 7-colored heavenly tribulation is just SOSO. Heaven and earth trembled at his bold words. The tribulation clouds in the sky surged, and even more terrifying tribulation lightning struck. This time, Xiao Jingchen was in a sorry state. He was barely able to handle the 6th and 7th tribulation lightning strikes. By the 8th tribulation lightning strike, he was already severely injured. I was too careless. Xiao Jingchen spat out a mouthful of blood. The aura of the heavenly golden imperial physique seemed a little weak. Everyone did not laugh at him. After all, this was the 7-colored heavenly tribulation. Boom! The 9th tribulation lightning struck. Seeing that the tribulation lightning was about to strike, Xiao Jingchen suddenly took out a black spear and thrust it out. A terrifying emperor's aura swept out. That's a monarch weapon! Everyone exclaimed. With the monarch weapon in hand, Xiao Jingchen barely survived the 9th tribulation lightning strike. Soon, the tribulation lightning dissipated. Rays of sage light descended from the sky. Xiao Jingchen was bathed in the sacred light, and his aura rose steadily. With his unparalleled talent and deep understanding of Daoist techniques, Xiao Jingchen had passed the boundary sage stage and became a sage. A sage aura that far surpassed the average sage swept out. All the disciples of the heavenly golden palace looked at Xiao Jingchen passionately. He's so powerful. Our young master is too powerful. He can even survive the 7-colored heavenly tribulation. Who else in the current heavenly tribulation can compare to him? Even Chu Kuangren is slightly weaker than him. But I heard that Chu Kuangren's 9-colored heavenly tribulation is even more terrifying than the 7-colored heavenly tribulation. So what? In the end, he was still sealed away by the heavenly punishment. He's definitely not as powerful as the young master now. That's right. Our young master is the strongest. Now that he has become a sage, his ranking on the Soaring Dragon leaderboard will surely change again. In the firmament star, the Great Ones and Sky Prides could not help but feel shocked when they sensed Xiao Jingchen's powerful aura after becoming a sage. Xiao Jingchen, I didn't expect you to become a sage before me. But I'll catch up soon. In a mountain range, a burly young man laughed as he looked towards the heavenly golden palace's direction while stepping on a giant bear. Around him and the giant bear, there were obvious signs of battle. The mountains within a 1,000-kilometer radius were all destroyed. It was as if dozens of sages were engaged in a chaotic battle. At another location, a black-robed woman with a metal mask on her face also looked towards the heavenly golden palace's direction. C, I can't believe he became a sage before me. You're in the limelight. Just you wait. In a few days, I'll beat the crap out of you after I become a sage. The woman said angrily. She was in a bad mood. Behind her, there was a thick fog. Low growls could be heard coming from within the fog as if it was a demonic beast from hell. What are you growling for? If you keep growling, I'll stew you. Sob sob, the thick fog let out 2 whimpers as if it was wronged. In the ancient battlefield, one of the 10 great forbidden areas. Oh, Xiao Jingchen has become a sage. Then I'll have to pick up the pace. I didn't expect there to be such a good place in the firmament star. It's the perfect place for me to become a sage. In a barren mountain range, a black-armored young man mumbled to himself. Behind him was a large group of tormented souls that exuded a monstrous murderous aura. As Xiao Jingchen became a sage, it triggered a chain reaction. Chapter 456. Inside the Heavenly Golden Palace. After Xiao Jingchen became a sage, the entire Heavenly Golden Palace was in an uproar. Many people looked at Xiao Jingchen with admiration. Some of the ladies even had stars in their eyes. Young master, congratulations on becoming a sage. Sage ruler Changqin brought a group of sages to Xiao Jingshan. In terms of seniority, Xiao Jingshan was tens of thousands of years old, so it was not unusual for him to address him as young master. Yes. Xiao Jingshan smiled and nodded. He was very happy that he had become a sage through the seven-colored heavenly tribulation. He was one step closer to becoming an emperor. By the way, where's Xiao Lintian? Xiao Jingshan suddenly asked. Xiao Jingshan still cared a lot about Xiao Lintian, a sky pride who also had the heavenly golden imperial physique. He had even planned to train Xiao Lintian to be his right-hand man. The faces of sacred ruler Changqin and the others darkened upon hearing his words. What happened? Xiao Jingshan asked with a frown. Young master, Xiao Lintian is dead. Sage ruler Changqin took a deep breath and said. A cold, murderous intent shot out from Xiao Jingshan's eyes. He had just become a sage, so he could not fully control his own aura. His sage aura swept out, pressuring everyone at the scene. Even sage ruler Changqin could not help but feel his scalp tingle. So powerful! Is this the power of a sage with the heavenly golden imperial physique? Tell me what happened? Xiao Jingshan slowly retracted his aura and asked. Sage ruler Changqin breathed a sigh of relief and told him everything about Xiao Lintian's challenge to Chu Kuangren. At the same time, he also told them about Chu Kuangren's information. Oh, Chu Kuangren? You mean the person who dragged hundreds of thousands of people with him during the 9-colored heavenly tribulation 3 years ago? Xiao Jingshan's eyes were filled with surprise. When he first heard about Chu Kuangren, he was also shocked. He did not expect such a person to exist in the firmament star. However, when he heard that Chu Kuangren had been struck by the heavenly punishment seal, he did not care anymore. After all, Chu Kuangren was just a mortal. Yet now, Chu Kuangren had reappeared. A special rune technique? Now I'm a little interested in meeting this Chu Kuangren. However, I've only just ascended to a sage, so I'll need to spend a few days to stabilize myself. By then, I'll show him who's truly the best in this world. Xiao Jingshan waved his sleeve and said coldly. On the hidden dragon ranking, he was ranked 3rd. Before Chu Kuangren's appearance, the first place had always been empty. Now that Chu Kuangren had snatched the first place away from him as soon as he appeared, he was extremely displeased. He secretly made up his mind to snatch the first place back. In a desert, Chu Kuangren and Lan Yu walked against the sandstorm. Mister, that aura just now was very strong. Was that a genius from the 9 heavens? Lan Yu asked curiously. Yes, it should be. He came from the direction of the heavenly golden palace, so he must be the 9 heavens sky pride, Xiao Jingshan, who was ranked 3rd on the soaring dragon leaderboard and is currently ranked 2nd. Chu Kuangren nodded slightly. He was not too concerned about it. The two of them walked in the desert for 2 days straight. Along the way, they saw many strange desert wonders. Then they came to a place that was filled with intense ferocious qi. This place was one of the 10 great forbidden areas of Firmament Star, the ancient battlefield. I wonder how the white-robed general is doing. Chu Kuangren chuckled. He was going to Acheron Manor to settle the score, but when he passed by the ancient battlefield, he decided to visit the white-robed general on a whim. After all, the white-robed general had promised to help him collect innate ferocious qi to forge a perfect, supreme, infallible tormented physique. Now that a few years had passed, Chu Kuangren wondered how the white-robed general was doing and if it was enough to upgrade his infallible tormented physique to its complete form. Chu Kuangren and Lan Yu arrived at the ancient battlefield's core area. He took out the jade pendant that he used to contact the white-robed general. However, after half an hour, he still did not see the white-robed general. He continued to wait. After a day and a night, there was still no news. At that moment, Chu Kuangren realized that something was wrong. Did something happen? Chu Kuangren frowned as he released his spiritual thoughts to search for the ancient battlefield's core area. The desolate and barren scene appeared in his mind. Chu Kuangren searched carefully. However, he still could not find the white-robed general. Was he not at the ancient battlefield? That was not right. The tormented souls that were born in the ancient battlefield were closely connected to this place, so it was impossible for them to leave. Not even a sage ruler could do so. The white-robed general had also said that he could not leave this place. Could he be dead? That would explain why he could not find the white-robed general. However, who could kill the white-robed general, one of the ancient battlefield's 3 kings? Chu Kuangren did not make any immediate deductions and continued to search. Soon he found something. There was a palace in the ancient battlefield, and it was filled with a huge amount of ferocious qi that was so dense that it was almost solid. This ferocious qi was preventing Chu Kuangren's spiritual thoughts from probing inside. "Oh, is the white-robed general here?" Chu Kuangren murmured. "Let's go in and take a look." There had to be an explanation for this. The white-robed general was collecting the innate ferocious qi for him, and his descendant, Xianxia, was also a disciple who had gone through thick and thin with the Xian sect. Chu Kuangren brought Lan Yu and stepped into the ancient battlefield's core area. A dense and familiar ferocious qi surged towards them. Lan Yu activated her light-based Daoist rhyme to defend against it. Meanwhile, Chu Kuangren's invisible mind power had formed an invisible barrier that isolated the ferocious qi. They were not tormented souls, so the ferocious qi was like a poisonous gas to them. Inhaling too much of it would be harmful. Both of them walked towards the palace in the ancient battlefield's core area. With their strength, the tormented souls that they encountered along the way were easily dealt with. They even collected a few surges of innate ferocious qi. A living person. Another living person has appeared in the ancient battlefield. Both of them encountered another tormented soul. This tormented soul's cultivation level was obviously not low, and it had gained sentience because of the innate ferocious qi. When it saw Chu Kuangren and Lan Yu, it could not help but be surprised. Chu Kuangren was quite concerned about what it said. Again? Could there be other living people in the ancient battlefield's core area besides him and Lan Yu? "Who is this living person you're talking about?" Chu Kuangren asked. You have no right to ask for that person's name. Go to hell." That tormented soul did not say another word and immediately attacked. He threw out a punch that was filled with ferocious qi. "Forget it, I'll figure it out myself." Chu Kuangren raised his arm and unleashed a runic sword. The sword qi immediately pierced through the ferocious qi and pierced through the tormented soul. With a loud explosion, the tormented soul was instantly destroyed. Chu Kuangren raised his arm and grabbed a surge of innate ferocious qi with his mind power. He then threw it into his yin and yang ring. Let's continue. A few hours later, Chu Kuangren and Lan Yu arrived at the palace. Inside the palace, a middle-aged man in a blood-red robe who was surrounded by black ferocious qi abruptly opened his eyes. The aura of a living person doesn't belong to Master Daoist Sha. There's also a disgusting light aura as well. Who could it be? Chapter 457. Inside a palace at the center of the ancient battlefield. A tormented soul dressed in a blood-red robe slowly stood up with a terrifying ferocious qi emanating from his body as he stared outside the palace. After a while, cries of agony could be heard coming from outside the palace. One by one, the tormented souls were torn apart by the runic swords. A man and a woman slowly walked in and looked around the palace. It looked like they were visiting a tourist attraction. "How dare you trespass into the Blood Fiend Temple? Do you have a death wish?" The man in the blood-red robe stood up and locked his gaze on Chu Kuangren and the woman. Ferocious qi swirled around him as a huge domineering aura gushed out. Chu Kuangren activated his Eye of Revelation. Blood Fury Sage Ruler, one of the ancient battlefield's 3 sovereigns. After Chu Kuangren finished reading the information, he said, "I'm only here to ask one thing. Where is the white-robed general?" "Oh, you're here to look for the white-robed general?" Blood Fury Sage Ruler was surprised. "I didn't expect a living person to step into the ancient battlefield to look for him. What a surprise. Who are you to him?" "None of your business." "Where is he?" "He's locked up here. If you want to save him, you'll have to kill me first. Otherwise, you'll have to stay here with him." Blood Fury Sage Ruler grinned as his ferocious qi surged. "I'll fulfill your wish then." Chu Kuangren said as he raised his arm to gather runes in the sky. Runic swords were formed one after another, encompassing everything in the world. The extremely powerful rune pressure almost instantly broke through Blood Fury Saint Ruler's ferocious aura pressure and enveloped him. At this moment, Saint King Shueisha, who was originally full of confidence because of his Saint Ruler cultivation, suddenly narrowed his eyes in shock. F***ck me. What kind of aura was this? The rune swords were like a meteor shower that pierced through the air. Blood Fury Sage Ruler roared as he took out a blood-red spear and waved it around, shattering the runic swords one by one. What terrifying runic energy! Who the hell is this person? The tormented souls of the ancient battlefield could not leave the ancient battlefield, so they did not know much about the outside world. They had never even heard of Chu Kuangren. 1, 2, 10, 100, more and more rune swords were smashed by Blood Fury Sage King, and the energy waves that were released caused the entire palace to shake. Damn it, if this goes on, there's no way we can win. Blood Fury Sage Ruler gritted his teeth as a vicious look flashed across his eyes. His figure turned into a blood-colored stream of light and shot towards Chu Kuangren. He ignored the runic sword that was coming at him and only used his extremely clever movement techniques and battle experience to dodge it. Although he still sustained quite a few injuries, he had already arrived in front of Chu Kuangren. The blood-red spear in his hand was condensed with surges of blood-red ferocious chi, as if it had transformed into a ferocious water dragon that was about to tear at Chu Kuangren. Blood Flood Dragon Divine Killing Spear. This attack was so powerful that it almost pierced through the void. But at this moment, a black veil appeared. The blood-colored flood dragon landed on the veil, causing circles of ripples to appear on the veil. The energy that escaped from the ripples tore the ground apart and shook the surroundings. What? This is a quasi-emperor weapon. Blood Fury Saint Ruler's pupils contracted. Chu Kuangren chuckled. A few runic swords were already floating above Blood Fury Sage Ruler's head, and they came crashing down like meteors. Boom! The rune swords pierced through Blood Fury Sage Ruler's body and pinned him to the ground. The runes that formed these rune swords were all saint-grade runes. Their Daoist rhymes were extremely terrifying, just like 100,000 mountains. Once Blood Fury Sage Ruler was pinned, he could not move at all. Chu Kuangren raised his hand and was about to end his opponent. However, at that moment, Blood Fury Sage Ruler's body released surges of blood-colored flames, and his aura instantly skyrocketed several times. He had ignited his tormented body. Rise. A violent ferocious chi erupted from Blood Fury Sage Ruler's body, instantly shattering the few runic swords that were nailed to his back. Then he got up and charged towards Chu Kuangren, the blood-red spear in his hand once again piercing the black veil. This time, the black veil caved in, and the blood-red spear continued to approach Chu Kuangren as if it was going to pierce through him. Unfortunately, you're not strong enough. You've given me some time. Chu Kuangren said indifferently. A silver-white rune condensed in his palm and slowly rotated. It was an incredibly mysterious spatial rune. That spatial rune was exactly the same as the one Chu Kuangren used to suppress the countless sages in the craggy ocean tower. However, it was much smaller. It was the spatial freeze rune. As the name suggested, it could freeze space. This rune was also the most mysterious sage-grade rune recorded in the Elysium Emperor scripture. It was second only to an Emperor-grade rune, and an ordinary talisman master would not be able to draw a trace of it even if they spent their entire lives. Even Chu Kuangren would need to spend some time to prepare. When he realized that Blood Fury Sage Ruler was a sage ruler, he had split a part of his spiritual thought to draw this rune. Although it was not as powerful as the one he used in the craggy ocean tower, it was still powerful enough to suppress Blood Fury Sage Ruler. The freeze rune was slowly formed. When that rune landed on the tip of the spear, a mysterious spatial fluctuation appeared and enveloped the space 10 feet around Blood Fury Sage Ruler. He was trapped inside, unable to move. D*****. Blood Fury Sage Ruler burned his tormented physique to quickly dissolve the effects of the freeze rune. However, That amount of time was enough for Chu Kuangren to kill him. More than 10 runic swords converged and pierced through the air. Blood Fury Sage Ruler could not withstand the power of the runes and was instantly destroyed, his soul dispersing. All that was left was a large cloud of innate ferocious qi and a blood-colored spear. Chu Kuangren looked at the innate ferocious qi and smiled in satisfaction. Once I break the seal, this cloud of innate ferocious qi will be enough to upgrade my infallible tormented physique to its complete form. Of course, that was not Chu Kuangren's main purpose for coming here. His spiritual thought covered every corner of the palace, searching for the white-robed general's whereabouts. He found 2 places with restrictions, and if the white-robed general was really in this palace, he would be in one of them. He brought Lan Yu to the location of the first restriction, but he did not find the white-robed general. Instead, he found a black altar. There were 4 stone pillars on top of the black altar, and each of them was filled with an incredibly dense innate ferocious qi. The total amount of innate ferocious qi on these 4 stone pillars was a few times denser than the one he obtained from Blood Fury Sage Ruler. If tormented souls obtain innate ferocious qi, they will devour it immediately instead of keeping it. Why would they set up an altar like this? Then who did this? Chu Kuangren's heart skipped a beat. He recalled that one of the tormented souls he met previously mentioned that there was a living person in the ancient battlefield. That person even addressed him as that lord? Could this be the work of that lord? That lord? Tiske, who cares who it is? Since there's something good in front of me, I might as well take it. Chu Kuangren curled his lips and kept the entire altar into his yin and yang ring. After that, he went to another place with restrictions. A few hundred feet underground. In one of the cells, a white-robed man was tied up by several pitch-black chains. On his back, there were 2 spikes that looked like straws that were pierced into his spine. The other end of the spikes was connected to a giant bottle. Surges of black innate ferocious qi were continuously extracted from the white-robed man's body and injected into that bottle. That person was the white-robed general that Chu Kuangren was looking for. Chapter 458. Tiskese, this is the white-robed general, one of the 3 kings of the ancient battlefield. But now, he's locked up here like a dog. Outside the cell, a tormented soul was giggling while playing with a mask in his hand. It was the mask that belonged to the white-robed general. However, it was now being played with by a tormented soul. Inside the cell, the white-robed general was silent. His long black hair was draped over his shoulders, covering half of his face. No one could see his true appearance. His aura was very weak as the innate ferocious qi in his body was constantly being extracted. The process was not very painful, but it was very long. Furthermore, his consciousness would gradually disappear. It was as if a person's blood had been completely drained. The innate ferocious qi was equivalent to his blood. The white-robed general was a half-human, half-tormented soul existence. It was not an easy task to extract the innate ferocious qi from his body. If it was an ordinary tormented soul, the innate ferocious qi could be extracted immediately after killing them. However, this was not the case for the white-robed general. The innate ferocious qi was closely intertwined with his dead body. Even if he was killed, the innate ferocious qi could not be extracted. The only way was to gradually extract the innate ferocious qi from his body using a method similar to drawing blood. TSK, looking at him, I don't think he can hold on much longer. Master Daoist Sha is really amazing to be able to think of such a method to extract his innate ferocious qi. One of the tormented souls laughed. Hey, some of the adventurers that I've killed in the past mentioned you. They said that you were an ancient general who led an army of millions. It must be very impressive, right? Why don't you tell us about your glorious achievements? One of the tormented souls said playfully. However, the white-robed general did not respond to the tormented soul's teasing. He remained kneeling on the ground like a statue. The tormented souls were already used to it. For so many days, ever since he was captured, he had been quiet and uncommunicative. They teased him because they were bored. Especially since the target of their teasing was the famous white-robed general of the ancient battlefield, They were never tired of it. Some people would always feel an inexplicable sense of excitement when they saw a high and mighty figure fall from the clouds. This was especially so when they could humiliate the other party as they pleased without fear of revenge. Even for the tormented souls, this deep-rooted bad habit was difficult to get rid of. Creak! At this moment, the chains rattled. The white-robed general suddenly raised his head and looked outside the dungeon. His eyes, hidden by his black hair, shone with a strange light. Why is there movement today? The tormented soul looked at the white-robed general in surprise. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps rang out. Two figures slowly walked into the dungeon. Following their arrival, the originally dark dungeon fell into a strange silence. All the tormented souls looked at the two of them with their mouths agape. One had to know that this was the dungeon of the Blood Fiend Palace, and the one guarding it was the Blood Fiend Holy Ruler, one of the 3 kings of the ancient battlefield. How did the two of them get down? It's so dark, it's so uncomfortable. Chu Kuangren snapped his fingers. Several flame runes condensed and illuminated the surroundings. Who are you? Damn it, how did you get down here? The tormented souls around him immediately went on high alert. However, Chu Kuangren ignored them. With a lift of his hand, dozens of runic swords were formed. In just a few breaths' time, the dozen or so tormented souls were completely annihilated by the runic swords. Not a single one was spared. Senior, you look like you're in a sorry state. Chu Kuangren came to the front of the cage and teased. The white-robed general chuckled. I didn't expect you to find this place so quickly. It seems like your growth over the past few years has far exceeded my expectations. Where's the Blood Fiend Holy Ruler? Oh, he's dead. Chu Kuangren said nonchalantly. He casually broke open the cage and cut off the few chains that bound the white-robed general. Then, he looked at the iron spike on the white-robed general's back and said in amazement, "It shouldn't be a problem for me to pull this thing out, right?" No problem. As soon as the white-robed general finished speaking, Chu Kuangren immediately used his mind power to pull the iron spike out. The iron spike that pierced through the white-robed general's spine was instantly pulled out. He could not help but gasp as his mouth twitched. Oh, Senior, you can still feel pain. I may be considered a living dead, but I'm not completely dead yet. All right then. Chu Kuangren did not mind and kept the bottle filled with innate ferocious qi into his yin and yang ring. The weakened white-robed general walked out of the dungeon, picked up the mask on the ground, and put it back on. Chu Kuangren had a good look at the white-robed general's face. It was a very delicate face that did not look like a general who had conquered the battlefield at all. Let's go. Chu Kuangren said and left the dungeon with his people. Not long after Chu Kuangren and his people left, a large group of people returned to the palace. Among them was one of the ancient battlefield's 3 kings, giant tormented sage ruler. The leader was a young man in black armor. His face was filled with killing intent, but there was a hint of excitement on his face at the moment. I've finally collected enough innate ferocious qi. Now I can raise my innate ferocious foundation level to its peak. When I ascend to become a sage, my foundation level will at least be a 5th tier sage, and I'll be the innate ferocious sage who specializes in combat. The black-armored young man, Daoist Sha, murmured. Wait a minute, something's not right. Suddenly, giant tormented sage ruler noticed that something was wrong. In the past, there were tormented souls patrolling around the Blood Fiend Palace, but it was eerily quiet today. Where's everyone? And why isn't Blood Fiend Sage Ruler coming out to welcome us? Quick, let's go in and have a look. Giant tormented Sage Ruler hurriedly led his people into the palace. However, they did not see a single tormented soul along the way. Moreover, the palace was filled with signs of battle. It was obvious that a fierce battle had taken place here. Who was it? Who could fight against the Blood Fiend Sage Ruler to such an extent? Not good. The black-armored young man's expression changed as he thought of something. He rushed into the palace and arrived at the place where the altar was placed. However, he found that it was already empty. His face was a mix of green and red, his chest was heaving up and down, and his eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. He was so angry that he almost vomited blood. Find it. Find me the innate ferocious altar. Giant tormented sage ruler and the others walked up to him. It's not just the innate ferocious altar. The white-robed general has disappeared too. There's no trace of the blood fiend sage ruler at the scene, so I'm guessing that he's probably dead. As far as I know, no tormented soul in the ancient battlefield has such abilities. Who could it be? Giant tormented sage ruler said with an ugly expression. No matter who it is, I'll tear them to pieces for daring to touch my innate ferocious altar. The black-armored young man gritted his teeth and said, the innate ferocious altar had taken him 3 whole years to build. It contained all of the innate ferocious chi that he had collected over the past 3 years. It was an important means for him to improve his foundation and ascend into a sage. Yet now, it had been taken away by someone else. How could he accept that this was related to one's foundation and ascension into a sage? 3 years. 3 whole years. He did not have the time to spend another 3 years planning. In a battle of the Emperor's path, one step behind would always mean falling behind. Now that Xiao Jingxian has ascended into a sage, I can't afford to hesitate any longer. I must ascend into a sage as soon as possible. The innate ferocious altar cannot be lost. Send out the order to seal off the entire ancient battlefield. Find the altar. Yes. As the orders were passed down, all the tormented souls who had gained sentience in the ancient battlefield swarmed out and searched for Chu Kuangren and the others. Chapter 459. Somewhere in the ancient battlefield, Chu Kuangren brought the white-robed general into a cave. Along the way, they encountered many tormented souls. All of them were sent by Daoist Sha and giant tormented sage king to chase after them. They were all taken care of by Chu Kuangren. I need to think of a way to remove this restriction of yours first. Chu Kuangren looked at the white-robed general in front of him and said, the baleful aura on the other party's body was connected to the earthen chi of the ancient battlefield. It was like an invisible shackle that firmly trapped the other party in the ancient battlefield. If he wanted to leave, he had to first undo the restrictions on the white-robed general. The restriction of the ancient battlefield has existed for a very long time. No one has ever been able to break it. Why don't you leave first? The white-robed general said. He did not want to implicate Chu Kuangren and Xiao Yu because of him. Since you're already here, how can you just leave like this? Don't you want to see the offspring of you and the princess with your own eyes? Hearing this, a glimmer of hope appeared in the white-robed general's eyes. He then bitterly smiled, I want to, but it's useless. Even if I can leave the ancient battlefield, my body is heavily injured and my killing intent is constantly leaking out. I probably won't be able to live for long. I'll think of something after we get out. Chu Kuangren said calmly. Things had to be dealt with one by one, so the first thing he needed to do now was to remove the ancient battlefield's restrictions for white-robed general. He pondered. The core area of the ancient battlefield was formed by countless saints fighting in a formation over tens of thousands of years. The earth energy here was special, and it was very likely that it had something to do with that formation. A formation? I wonder if this rune is useful. Chu Kuangren muttered as he activated his spiritual thought. The spiritual power around him converged and formed a mysterious rune on his palm. A strange wave of energy rippled out. He placed the runes on the white-robed general's body. Rune of Destruction. This was a sacred rune recorded in the Mystic Origin Imperial Scripture. It was used to counteract negative influences from the outside world. This talisman was extremely mysterious, but it was unclear what it was used for. Chu Kuangren did not know what the rune was used for, but he could only give it a try since the white-robed general was in such a situation. After a while, the white-robed general's body suddenly shook. He said in surprise, I feel like the ancient battlefield's restriction on me is weakening. Oh, it works. Chu Kuangren's eyes lit up. He raised his hand and condensed another destruction talisman. Gradually, the white-robed general sensed that the ancient battlefield's restraints on him were almost non-existent. He felt indescribably relaxed. Just as the white-robed general was released from his restraints, Daoist Xia, giant tormented sage king, and the others had already set up an inescapable trap outside the cave. This was the ancient battlefield's core area, the turf of the tormented souls. As long as they searched carefully, it would not be difficult for them to locate Chu Kuangren. How dare you take away the innate ferocious sacrificial altar? I'll teach you a lesson. Looking at the cave, Daoist Xia's eyes flickered with coldness. Inside the cave, as Chu Kuangren untied white-robed general, he listened to him talk about the changes that had taken place in the ancient battlefield over the past few years. As it turned out, 3 years ago, a Daoist Xia suddenly appeared in the ancient battlefield. He used his powerful strength to conquer the entire ancient battlefield's core zone. He subdued Giant Torment Sage King and Blood Fury Sage King and made them work for him. For the past 3 years, Daoist Xia had been collecting innate ferocious qi to build an innate ferocious sacrificial altar. He wanted to use it to improve his foundation. As one of the 3 kings, the white-robed general had a large amount of innate ferocious qi on him. Since he did not submit to Daoist Xia, he became their primary target. Although the white-robed general had narrowly escaped death several times with his cultivation as a saint ruler, he was still captured a few months ago. That was how Chu Kuangren broke into the palace to rescue him. Daoist Xia. This name sounds familiar. Chu Kuangren rubbed his chin and said, Master, the 9 Heavens Sky Pride ranked 6th on the Soaring Dragon leaderboard is this Daoist Xia. At that moment, Lan Yu reminded him. They had been to the Divine Predictor Pavilion and seen the Soaring Dragon leaderboard. Although they did not deliberately memorize the names on it, they still had some impression of it. No wonder he could conquer the entire ancient battlefield. He's a top-notch sky pride from the 9 heavens, Chu Kuangren murmured. His interest was piqued as he looked outside the cave. This is my first time dealing with someone from the 9 heavens. I wonder how strong he is. He's very strong. Most sage rulers are no match for him, the white-robed general said in a serious tone. Coupled with Giant Tormented Sage King and the other tormented souls, this battle will be very difficult. He stood up and looked outside the cave. He could already feel the tormented souls gathering outside. Do you have any weapons? The white-robed general asked. Apart from this mask, everything else that he had on him had been taken away, including his old weapons. You're a spear user, right? That's great. I killed Blood Fury Sage Ruler and he dropped one. Chu Kuangren took out the blood-colored spear that Blood Fury Sage Ruler used. It was a top-notch Sage Ruler weapon. Thank you. The white-robed general took the spear. The moment he held it, a familiar cold ferocious qi swept out from his body. Although he was extremely weak, he was still the same invincible white-robed general who dominated the battlefield with a spear in his hand. Lan Yu, keep an eye on him. Chu Kuangren said to Lan Yu. No matter how fierce the white-robed general's aura was, it could not hide the fact that he was heavily injured. He did not want to be the one collecting his opponent's corpse. The 3 of them walked out of the cave. What awaited them was a dense horde of tormented army. The leader of the tormented army was clad in black armor. His pitch-black eyes stared at Chu Kuangren with a cold, murderous intent. Chu Kuangren was also looking at him with his eye of revelation activated. Daoist Xia from the tormented tribe, an ancient orthodoxy of the 9 heavens. His physique is the infallible tormented physique. He cultivates the innate ferocious emperor scripture and is an honorable supreme. Chu Kuangren was quite surprised. He did not expect his opponent to also have the infallible tormented physique and cultivate an emperor scripture that was related to ferocious qi. No wonder he could improve his foundation by absorbing innate ferocious qi. Thief, hand over the innate ferocious altar, and I'll grant you a quick death, Daoist Xia said coldly. However, what greeted him was the thousands of runic swords that Chu Kuangren formed with a raise of his hand. The runic sword qi poured out like a torrent and wreaked havoc between the heavens and the earth. Even the sage-level tormented army could not withstand such power. The thousands of runic swords tore open a huge gap in the tormented army that numbered in the tens of thousands. The unparalleled power made the tormented army's pupils dilate. No wonder Blood Fury Sage Ruler was defeated by him. This person's combat strength is no weaker than a Sage Ruler's. Giant Tormented Sage Ruler and the others looked extremely solemn, especially Giant Tormented Sage Ruler, who recognized Chu Kuangren the moment he saw him. Chu Kuangren had come to the ancient battlefield a few years ago, but he could not even withstand a single finger of his. However, he could now kill a Sage Ruler. Chu Kuangren's speed of improvement shocked him. "Let's go," Chu Kuangren said. He took a step forward and countless runic swords shuttled back and forth around him, killing every tormented soul that got close to him. The white-robed general and Lan Yu followed closely behind. Lan Yu immediately opened the black barrier to block all the tormented souls' attacks, allowing Chu Kuangren to focus on opening a path with his runic sword qi. Chapter 460. The runic sword qi shuttled back and forth among the tormented souls. One by one, the tormented souls were easily killed and pulverized. None of them could get within 3 feet of Chu Kuangren, and none of them could break through the black gauze barrier. Heavenly ferocious Dharma idol, form. At this moment, a terrifying murderous aura surged between heaven and earth. This ferocious aura was surging and turned into a heaven ferocious avatar that was 100 feet tall. It was the avatar that Daoist Sha had conjured. This avatar is even more powerful than the divine ferocious avatar that Chu Kuangren conjured 3 years ago. Its terrifying aura is earth-shattering. Is this the absolute ferocious Dharma form? Furthermore, he has cultivated the Heaven Fiend Imperial Sutra. Interesting. Although it was stronger than his divine ferocious avatar, Chu Kuangren did not really care. After all, the infallible tormented physique was just one of his many techniques. It would not affect him much even if he gave up on it. "Stay here." Daoist Sha let out a furious roar as he activated his heavenly ferocious Dharma idol and punched out with all his might. A huge stretch of the void shook like waves in the sea. Chu Kuangren condensed lines of sage-grade runes and combined them with his own sword-based Daoist rhyme, turning them into an incredibly powerful giant sword that slashed out. There was a loud explosion, and the terrifying impact sent all the tormented souls in the surroundings flying. Even giant tormented sage ruler could not help but fall back a few feet. What a terrifying rune energy! Daoist Sha was blasted a few hundred meters away by the impact of the runic energy and crashed into a mountain peak. He looked at Chu Kuangren in shock. The other party had the protection of the black veil, and the impact was disintegrated bit by bit. Seeing this, Daoist Sha took out a palm-sized bell made of an unknown material. Terrifying Daoist rhymes circulated around the bell. "To be able to make me use the heavenly fiend bell, you should be honored." Daoist Sha grunted coldly and was about to make his move. However, at that moment, Chu Kuangren suddenly pointed towards the sky from afar. What did that mean? Daoist Sha was confused. Then he looked up into the sky, and his pupils shrank. A gigantic silver-white rune enveloped the entire tormented army, and like a meteor crashing into the ground, it smashed into the army. The surrounding space seemed to have turned into a quagmire, making it difficult for everyone to move. Even Daoist Sha could feel waves of pressure. These are spatial runes. He can actually condense spatial runes of this scale. Daoist Sha was astonished. Meanwhile, Chu Kuangren had used the spatial solidification rune to imprison the tormented soul. He did not stay for long and quickly left with Lan Yu and white-robed general. Although the effect of the congeal talisman was strong, Daoist Sha wasn't completely confined. He was still able to fight under the effect of the congeal talisman. Moreover, his opponent had a powerful weapon in his hand. A prolonged battle wouldn't be beneficial. He decided to leave with the white-robed general first. "You want to leave? Dream on." Daoist Sha activated his heavenly ferocious Dharma idol and broke free from the restraints of the Ning talisman. However, just as he was about to give chase, dozens of talisman swords flew over from the horizon. Each of these runic swords possessed the strength to kill a sage. Even Daoist Sha had to focus and defend against them. By then, Chu Kuangren and the others had already left. When the effect of the freeze talisman wore off, everyone had already disappeared. Daoist Xia was furious. Chase them! He roared and led the tormented souls to give chase. However, after a few hundred meters, mysterious runes suddenly appeared in the void and transformed into lightning, wind, frost, and fire rocks. All sorts of natural energies filled the air and crashed into the tormented army. Although the power of these runes was not as strong as the runic swords that Chu Kuangren had condensed, their power was not to be underestimated. Moreover, there were so many of them that the tormented army was thrown into confusion and many of them were injured. D*****. D*****. Daoist Xia was so angry that his mouth twitched. Master Daoist Xia, we don't know how many more rune traps that guy has set along the way. I'm afraid we won't be able to catch up to him. Giant tormented sage ruler sighed helplessly. Daoist Xia stared ahead coldly, but he knew that what giant tormented sage ruler said made sense. They might not be able to catch up to him anymore. However, the innate ferocious altar was the key to improving his foundation. And now it was gone. Even without the innate ferocious altar, I must become a sage as soon as possible. I can't fall behind Xiao Jingshan by too much. Now that things have come to this, that's the only way. Daoist Xia's eyes revealed a hint of ruthlessness. Don't worry, Master Daoist. We can find more innate ferocious qi. We're willing to go through fire and water for Master Daoist. Giant tormented sage ruler took the opportunity to express his loyalty. He knew that Daoist Xia came from an extremely powerful force. If he could befriend Daoist Xia, he might even have a chance to leave this ancient battlefield and follow Daoist Xia to a wider world. Is that so? I'm very pleased that you're so loyal. If that's the case, are you willing to die for me? Daoist Xia said indifferently. Giant tormented sage ruler and the others were shocked when they heard that. They could not figure out what Daoist Xia meant. However, at that moment, Daoist Xia took out the black bell and activated it with his spiritual power. The bell expanded with the wind and became extremely huge. Following that, a series of bell chimes erupted from the bell. Terrifying ferocious qi swept in all directions and attacked the tormented souls. Even a powerhouse like giant tormented sage ruler could not help but feel his body cracking under the ringing of the bell. Master Daoist Xia, what are you doing? The tormented souls were extremely terrified. Didn't you say that you're willing to go through fire and water for me? Since the innate ferocious altar is gone, I'll have to use your ferocious qi to improve my foundation. What's wrong? Are you going to go back on your words? Daoist Xia did not hold back as he activated the bell with all his might. The sonorous sound waves mixed with ferocious qi spread out, crushing the tormented souls one by one. Even giant tormented sage ruler was no exception. They wanted to escape, but they could not escape from the range of the sonorous sound waves. Not long after, all the tormented souls were dead, leaving only surges of innate ferocious qi where they stood. Daoist Xia absorbed the innate ferocious qi into his body, but he did not look happy at all. This level of innate ferocious qi is far inferior to the innate ferocious altar, but this is the best I can do. D****. Thief, once I become a sage, I'll find out who you are and cut you into 1,000 pieces. There was no one else in the entire firmament star who was as proficient in runes as Chu Kuangren. He believed that he could find out who he was if he asked around. When that time came, he would definitely make him pay. Far away, Chu Kuangren, Lan Yu, and the white-robed general had successfully walked out of the ancient battlefield's core area. On top of the elusive mirage, Chu Kuangren opened his eyes. This Daoist Xia is quite ruthless. His spiritual thought had just returned from the ancient battlefield, and he had witnessed the scene of Daoist Xia slaughtering the tormented souls. Of course, he had also heard that Daoist Xia wanted to seek revenge on him. However, he did not care much about that. Revenge? There were countless people in this world who wanted his life and revenge. It did not matter if Daoist Xia was dead or alive. Next, I should think of a way to heal the white-robed general's injuries. Besides, the seal within my body is about to be released, Chu Kuangren murmured. Chapter 461. Inside the Elusive Mirage. Chu Kuangren was observing the white-robed general's injuries. Even though he had broken free, the ferocious qi on his body was still fading away. Although the speed was much slower, it was still fading away. White-robed general, one of the ancient battlefield's 3 kings. Chu Kuangren used his eye of revelation to check on the white-robed general's condition. His internal foundation has been damaged, and his innate ferocious qi is fading away. His physical body is slowly fading away. If there's no remedy, he'll probably die in 7 days. The information from the Eye of Revelation made Chu Kuangren frown. 7 days. The white-robed general only had 7 days left to live? What should he do? Chu Kuangren pondered. Fellow Daoist Chu, I know my situation best. Before I die, I would like to see my descendants. Is that possible? The white-robed general said calmly. It was as if he did not care about his impending death. To him, he was already a dead man. It was the princess of the Lu kingdom who used a secret technique to prolong his life, allowing him to live on in this world. His only wish now was to see his descendants. They were his and her descendants. It's not that you can't see them, but I don't think it's a good idea for you to meet them in this state. Chu Kuangren laughed. I'll just take a look at them. Stop teasing me. We'll talk about it when my body recovers. My body is like a candle in the wind. There's no way I can save it, the white-robed general said with a bitter smile. If I say you can, then you can. Chu Kuangren said calmly. He then took out a black altar with surges of innate ferocious qi circling around it. Let's take a gamble. This innate ferocious altar was used by Daoist Sha to improve his foundation, and it just so happened that your foundation was destroyed. Perhaps this item will be useful to you. No matter how bad the situation is, it won't be worse than now. Chu Kuangren said. The white-robed general hesitated for a while. He looked at the innate ferocious altar and took a deep breath. All right, let's give it a try. He was a decisive general. Since he had decided to give it a try, he immediately got up and walked towards the innate ferocious altar. The 4 black stone pillars on the altar seemed to have sensed something. They trembled and emitted a faint black light. Then, the innate ferocious qi within the altar gushed towards the white-robed general and seeped into his limbs. Even the white-robed general couldn't help but groan in pain. Innumerable amounts of innate ferocious qi tunneled into his body, transforming his body and reshaping his foundation. This method of transformation was extremely barbaric, and the white-robed general did not know how to control it. He could only let the innate ferocious qi run amok in his body like wild horses, wreaking havoc everywhere. Do I need to stop? Chu Kuangren asked calmly. He was already prepared to use his mind power to pull his opponent down from the altar. The white-robed general extended his hand and said, There's no need for that. Although this innate ferocious energy is violent, it's useful. Chu Kuangren activated his Eye of Revelation. White-robed general, recovering foundation. Modifying constitution. Current progress, 1%. Looks like my luck is pretty good. I made the right bet. Chu Kuangren smiled. From the looks of it, it would take at least half a month for the white-robed general to completely recover. In other words, he would have to endure the pain of being transformed for half a month. Ordinary cultivators would not be able to endure it. However, when Chu Kuangren saw the determined look on the white-robed general's face, he knew that time was not an issue at all. The white-robed general's willpower was not something an ordinary cultivator could compare to. I hope that when we meet again in half a month, you'll be reborn. Chu Kuangren said calmly. Then, he activated the elusive mirage's defensive force field and set up several runic seals to hide the entire elusive mirage in the void. Next, I'll enter the final stage of unsealing. Chu Kuangren murmured. He handed the elusive mirage over to Lan Yu and walked into one of the lofts within the elusive mirage. He then went into closed-door meditation to prepare to unseal it. During this period, the firmament star was extremely lively. Ever since Xiao Jingxin became a sage, the sky prides of the 9 heavens began to ascend one by one as if they had an agreement. Moreover, the commotion caused by their ascension was not small at all. Everyone's ascension into a sage was extremely powerful. There were even 2 7-colored heavenly tribulations like Xiao Jingchen that shocked half of the firmament star. Those two were Wang Tianting, who was ranked 4th on the Soaring Dragon leaderboard, and Zhan Hongying, who had returned to 2nd place after becoming a sage. Both of them were rare sky prides throughout history. Most of their ascension into sages were 7-colored heavenly tribulations, which was no weaker than Xiao Jingchen's. Besides those 3, there were a few other sky prides whose ascension into sages also received a lot of attention. Among them, Daoist Sha, who was ranked 6th on the Soaring Dragon leaderboard, ascended into a sage using ferocious qi in the ancient battlefield. Although his heavenly tribulations were not 7-colored heavenly tribulations, they were not any weaker than the latter. There were also some boundary sages who had already ascended into the sage realm. Not to be outdone, they also used various opportunities of fortune to break through to the sage realm. As more and more sky prides and sages appeared, the older generation of sages were reduced to mere foils. They were used as tools for the sky prides to challenge and make a name for themselves. Today, another hot topic appeared on the firmament star. The Heavenly Golden Palace. A loud voice suddenly erupted from a mountain peak. I, Xiao Jingchen, wish to challenge Chu Kuangren to a duel at the Skyraiser Mountain in 3 days. I hope Chu Kuangren will be punctual. The cultivators who heard the voice were shocked and quickly spread the news. Soon, everyone in the firmament star knew about it. Everyone was shocked. Xiao Jingchen wanted to challenge Chu Kuangren. He wanted to challenge Chu Kuangren, who had single-handedly destroyed the craggy ocean tower. This battle attracted the attention of many great ones. Xiao Jingchen's heavenly golden imperial physique is many times stronger than Xiao Lintian's. Moreover, he has ascended into a sage through the 7-colored heavenly tribulations. Perhaps he might stand a chance against Chu Kuangren. That's right. Since Chu Kuangren has been sealed by the heavenly punishment seal, he can only use his runic techniques. It seems like Xiao Jingchen still has a high chance of winning. Interesting, what about Chu Kuangren? What's his response? Just when everyone was excited about Xiao Jingchen's challenge to Chu Kuangren, another sky pride spoke. This time, it was Daoist Sha from the ancient battlefield. Similarly, he also wanted to challenge Chu Kuangren. Everyone was extremely shocked. It was understandable for Xiao Jingchen to challenge Chu Kuangren. After all, he was an ancient sky pride from the Heavenly Golden Palace, and the Heavenly Golden Palace had a deep grudge against Chu Kuangren. Hence, it was reasonable for him to challenge Chu Kuangren. Why did Daoist Sha want to challenge Chu Kuangren? Inside the ancient battlefield, Daoist Sha sat in one of the palaces with deep hatred in his eyes. Compared to Xiao Jingchen, he hated Chu Kuangren even more. He had investigated and found out that it was Chu Kuangren who had stolen the innate ferocious altar, causing his foundation level to be unable to reach its peak. Initially, he had the chance to establish a 7th grade sage foundation level. However, because of Chu Kuangren, he only managed to achieve a 5th grade sage foundation level. Although they were only 2 grades apart, their potential, talent, and strength were worlds apart. How could Daoist Sha not hate Chu Kuangren? He hated him to the core. He could not wait to skin Chu Kuangren alive and eat him alive. Chapter 462. News of Xiao Jingchen and Daoist Sha challenging Chu Kuangren had spread throughout the entire firmament star, and every cultivator was paying close attention to this matter. Everyone was also waiting for Chu Kuangren's response. However, for 3 consecutive days, even after the time limit for the battle had passed, there was still no response from Chu Kuangren, let alone any sign of him. All the great ones were looking for Chu Kuangren. Their spiritual thoughts scanned the entire firmament star but to no avail. With Chu Kuangren's abilities, it was too easy for him to hide. As long as he willed it, no one could find him. Hide. This statement caused all the cultivators to be extremely shocked. Chu Kuangren knew how to hide. Oh God! What the hell? That was Chu Kuangren, the #1 lunatic in history. How could a lunatic like him know how to hide? Most of them believed that he was delayed by something. However, the Heavenly Golden Palace disciples did not think so. To them, Chu Kuangren was afraid of Xiao Jingchen and did not dare to show up. Chu Kuangren? That's all he's got. He can only hide in his shell in front of the young master. Chu Kuangren was terrifying. This was something that everyone acknowledged. Even the people from the Heavenly Golden Palace knew about it. That was also the reason why they were so frustrated by Chu Kuangren. Now, they finally had a chance to turn the tables. It did not matter why Chu Kuangren did not show up. What was important was that Xiao Jingchen had challenged Chu Kuangren, and he did not show up. That was enough for them to show off. Under the Heavenly Golden Palace's propaganda, Chu Kuangren became a coward who did not dare to show up because he was afraid of Xiao Jingchen. His reputation as a madman was ruined. It was not just the Heavenly Golden Palace. The disciples of Ethereal Rapture, Acheron Manor, Sacred Palace of Death, and the Bottomless Chasm who had a grudge against Chu Kuangren were also using this opportunity to belittle Chu Kuangren and ruin his reputation. What Chu Kuangren? He's just a coward who doesn't even dare to accept a challenge. It seems like he's really fallen. That's right. It's the era of Xiao Jingchen and the others now. Number 1 on the Soaring Dragon leaderboard? What a joke. The few Orthodoxy's disciples continued to slander Chu Kuangren. At first, there were some who didn't believe it. However, the slanderous voices grew louder and louder. Chu Kuangren did not appear at all, nor did he respond. It was as if he had really gone into hiding, as the others had said. As time passed, those who believed in Chu Kuangren gradually wavered. Could it be that Chu Kuangren was truly afraid? It was no wonder. After all, Xiao Jingchen's sage ascension tribulation was earth-shattering, and Chu Kuangren himself had been struck by the heavenly punishment seal. It was very likely that he would not be a match for Xiao Jingchen. It made sense that the other party did not dare to fight. As time went by, Chu Kuangren seemed to have solidified his reputation as a coward. The title of Kuangren is extremely disappointing. The Heavenly Golden Palace's Xiao Jingchen spread the news that Chu Kuangren had failed to keep his appointment, causing his reputation to rise once again. Compared to Xiao Jingchen, Daoist Sha's reaction was much more intense. He immediately declared that if Chu Kuangren did not show up, he would kill his way into the Black Heaven sect and slaughter the entire sect. 2 days after the announcement, there was still no response. Chu Kuangren, if that's the case, then don't blame me for this. Inside the ancient battlefield, Daoist Sha snorted and leaped into the sky. Not long after, he appeared outside the Black Heaven sect's great formation. Many people in the firmament star had noticed his actions. They knew that he was here to cause trouble for the Black Heaven sect today. This Daoist Sha really is a man of his word. He said he would destroy the Black Heaven sect, and he did it just like that. I wonder if he can break the formation? I don't think so. This formation is not that easy to break. The crowd discussed and paid attention to Daoist Sha. At that moment, Daoist Sha was standing outside the astonishing cloud of C's formation with ferocious chi swirling around his body. He looked like a demon that had just walked out of a Shura battlefield. You think you can stop me with a mere formation? What a joke! Daoist Sha dashed into the astonishing cloud of C's formation. The astonishing cloud of C's formation blocked everyone's spiritual thoughts, so they could barely sense the powerful energy fluctuations coming from within. After a day and a night, Daoist Sha walked out of the great formation with a gloomy expression. His aura was weak, and his hair was messy. Although he did not suffer any obvious injuries, he still looked like a mess. Behind him, the astonishing cloud of C's formation was still operating. Evidently, he had failed to break the formation. The crowd fell silent. Although they were surprised by the result, they felt that it was reasonable. After all, this great formation had killed countless enemies 3 years ago. It was known as the number 1 formation in Firmament Star. Even a sage ruler would not dare to enter it. Daoist Sha's failure did not shock them too much. D***Gemenet. I can't believe that the Black Heaven sect has such a formation. Countless formations are interconnected and impossible to defend against. And that Cloud Dragon's combat strength is on par with mine. If I didn't use the innate ferocious bell at the end, I wouldn't have been able to walk out of this formation unscathed. Daoist Xia turned to look at the astonishing cloud of seas formation behind him with a complicated look in his eyes. Even in the 9 heavens, it's rare to see a formation like this. Where did Chu Kuangren get it from? D***. This formation is too difficult to break. I'll have to think of another way. News of Daoist Xia's failure to break the formation had many people laughing in their hearts. They felt that Daoist Xia had been slapped in the face. However, what Daoist Xia did next shocked everyone even more. After failing to break the formation, Daoist Xia did not give up on his plan to force Chu Kuangren out. Instead, he changed his strategy. He used his powerful strength to subdue a few orthodoxies and then asked them to find some people for him. Those people were all Black Heaven sect disciples. To be more precise, they were former disciples of the Black Heaven sect. Back then, when the Black Heaven sect was besieged by many forces, no one thought that the Black Heaven sect could turn the tide. Hence, many disciples left the Black Heaven sect and joined other forces. Yet now, Daoist Xia had captured those people. He had announced, for every day that Chu Kuangren did not show up, he would kill 1,000 people. Such an insane act shocked every cultivator in the firmament star. Just how much hatred did this person have for Chu Kuangren? On the first day, Chu Kuangren did not show up. In the ancient battlefield, 1,000 heads fell to the ground. On the second day, Chu Kuangren still did not show up. Daoist Xia burned 1,000 people to death. Far away in the astonishing cloud of seas formation, the Black Heaven sect naturally received the news and was furious at Daoist Xia's actions. This Daoist Xia is worse than a beast. No matter what, those people were once disciples of the Black Heaven sect. Although they have nothing to do with us now, Daoist Xia's actions are undoubtedly a provocation to the Black Heaven sect and the sect leader. Elder Ruyan, what should we do? Inside the longevity hall, the elders gathered together. Elder Ruyan took a deep breath and said calmly, "Let's wait and see. Let's wait for the sect leader to show up." One of the elders hesitated. "Those disciples, what disciple?" Elder Ruyan replied with a question. The elders fell silent. They have nothing to do with the Black Heaven sect anymore. I don't blame them for leaving back then, but at the same time, there's no need for us to put ourselves in danger for them, Elder Ruyan said. No one blamed her for being ruthless. After all, she did it to protect the Black Heaven sect. Understood. Then let's wait for the sect leader to show up. Chapter 463. The news of Daoist Xia massacring the Black Heaven sect's former disciples had spread like wildfire in the firmament star. Countless people were watching. No one stood up to accuse him, and no one dared to. On the contrary, orthodoxies like the Heavenly Golden Palace who had a grudge against Chu Kuangren were more than happy to see that happen. Hence, they worked even harder to slander Chu Kuangren. This Chu Kuangren is really cold-blooded. No matter what, these people used to be disciples of the Black Heaven sect, and yet he didn't do anything about it. He's willing to sacrifice his disciples' lives just to protect himself. So this is the Black Heaven sect leader? How disgusting. The voices of slander increased day by day. Meanwhile, in the ancient battlefield, Sha Lingzi looked at the rising sun from afar and grinned. He then looked at the terrified cultivators behind him and said, "Your sect leader still hasn't shown up today, so all of you must die. But we're no longer disciples of the Black Heaven sect. Chu Kuangren has no reason to fight for us. It's useless even if you kill us all," one of the cultivators said loudly. "It doesn't matter if it works or not, I still have to try," Daoist Xia said calmly. He then raised his hand to gather the ferocious chi of heaven and earth and was about to kill another 1,000 people. However, a sword ray flashed past. The sword ray was extremely bright, and it carried an incredibly sharp aura as it ruthlessly slashed towards Daoist Xia's arm. The sword ray flashed past, but Daoist Xia's arm trembled. The sword ray landed on his arm, but it did not hurt him at all. "Oh, someone's here to die." It was two young sword-wielding men. Daoist Xia revealed a playful look when he saw them. 49th and 51st on the Soaring Dragon leaderboard, Murong Xian and Nangong Huang. I can't believe that you two are here to die before Chu Kuangren. It's hard to say who will win. Nangong Huang said calmly. An incredibly powerful aura erupted from his body, and a majestic sage's aura swept out like a tidal wave. Beside him, Murong Xian also released his aura. Oh, you've become a sage. No wonder you dare to come after me. But do you think you're a match for me just because you're a sage? You've overestimated yourself. Daoist Xia sneered. The sage's aura was several times stronger than Murong Xian and Nangong Huang. The tyrannical aura directly suppressed them. The top 10 geniuses are indeed extraordinary. Nangong Huang said solemnly. He had long known that the two of them would not be a match for him. However, they had no choice but to come. Now, the entire firmament star was looking at Chu Kuangren and the Black Heaven sect as a joke. The voices of slandering and questioning increased day by day. This time, they did not stand out to save people. It was to protect the reputation of the orthodoxy. Nangong Huang shouted in a low voice. Yin and yang divine light flowed in his eyes, resonating with the holy sword in his hand. His combat power was raised to its peak. When the sword slashed out, the sword chi merged with the yin-yang divine light. It was incomparably powerful. Murong Xian had also gone all out. Large amounts of sword chi gushed out of his body and condensed in the void, turning into many fiery red suns. 9 suns in the same sky. The 9 suns formed a line and suddenly slashed out. Daoist Xia revealed a look of disdain towards the two completely different sword chi Daoist rhymes. You guys are too weak. Saying so, he raised his hand and activated his killing intent. A horrifying divine ferocious avatar instantly formed. The divine ferocious avatar unleashed a punch, and its majestic ferocious chi gushed out like a tidal wave, shattering the combined sword chi of the two in an instant. Nangong Huang and Murong Xian were forced back hundreds of meters by the terrifying impact. Their sage bodies suffered from the impact, and they could not help but spit out blood. In the past few years, they had improved by leaps and bounds. They had even ascended to become sages, and their foundations were strong enough to rival veteran sages. However, compared to sky prides like Daoist Xia who came from the 9 heavens and inherited ancient orthodoxies, there was still a huge gap. You guys think you can fight me? What a joke. Oh well, let's see if Chu Kuangren will come out after I kill you guys. Daoist Xia activated the divine ferocious avatar. At that moment, Nangong Huang took out an item. It was a magnificent scroll. The scroll soared into the sky and revealed a scene of mountains and rivers. One after another, bestial soul beasts rushed out and bit at Daoist Xia. That's the craggy ocean tower's mountain sea scroll. I can't believe it's in their hands. The sages who were watching the battle were extremely shocked. The mountain sea scroll was the boundary emperor weapon of the craggy ocean tower. After the battle 3 years ago, it was taken by the Black Heaven sect. When Nangong Huang and the others descended into the world, Elder Ruyin gave it to them. With the help of this item, Nangong Huang and Murong Xian's combat strength increased tremendously. Among those strange beasts, there were some sage-level beasts. What a cheap trick. Daoist Xia snorted coldly as ferocious chi surged from his body. The divine ferocious avatar unleashed a few punches into the void, and with each punch, a large number of the strange beast's bestial souls would dissipate. Its strength was comparable to that of a sage ruler. Not long after, countless strange beasts were wiped out. The 4 strongest wild beasts' bestial souls in the Mountain Sea Scroll had been destroyed by Chu Kuangren 3 years ago, so their strength was no longer what it used to be. What other tricks do you guys have? If not, then die. The divine ferocious avatar behind Daoist Xia shook the void, and surging ferocious chi surged into the sky, causing many sages to shudder. Daoist Xia's strength is too strong. Nangong Huang and Murong Xian are no match for him at all. If this goes on, these 2 sky pride sages of the Black Heaven sect will die here. I wonder if Chu Kuangren will feel sorry for them? Some of the sages pondered. Meanwhile, Nangong Huang and Murong Xian knew that they were no match for Daoist Sha. They looked at each other and each took out a talisman. It was a great shift talisman. It was one of the treasures in the serpent deity's treasury. It was also one of the reasons why they dared to approach Daoist Sha. Although the two of them were hot-blooded, they were not stupid people. They had long prepared to leave if they were no match for Daoist Sha. Daoist Sha also noticed their actions. His eyes turned cold, and he was about to attack as fast as he could to stop them. However, at that moment, a strange fluctuation suddenly appeared between the heavens and the earth. This fluctuation made the great ones in Firmament Star narrow their eyes. They all looked at the source of the fluctuation in disbelief. Suddenly, a large amount of purple haze rose from the sky, and Daoist rhymes reverberated. It was accompanied by the silhouettes of divine beasts such as Qilins, divine dragons, phoenixes, and white beasts. The auspicious intent gradually covered the entire firmament star. The purple haze stretched for 30,000 miles. It was extremely majestic. The sight before them shocked all the cultivators in Firmament Star. Purple haze from the east. Legend has it that only a supreme sage will have this phenomenon. A sage said with a trembling voice. Who is it? Who has become a supreme sage? Is it a sky pride on the Soaring Dragon leaderboard? The top 10 sky prides on the Soaring Dragon leaderboard have all become sages. It's impossible for anyone to trigger this phenomenon. No, there's someone else. Someone thought of something. 3 years ago, this phenomenon happened when Chu Kuangren became a sage. It's impossible for two supreme sages to appear consecutively in 3 years. Could it be? At that moment, countless sages gulped. They had already thought of a possibility. This possibility shocked them to the core. It was even more shocking than seeing a supreme sage appear. Chu Kuangren unlocked the heavenly punishment seal. Chapter 464. It was not just Firmament Star. The purple haze 15,000 miles from the east phenomenon appeared in the 9 heavens and hell once again, shocking the great ones of both realms. The purple haze 15,000 miles from the east phenomenon has appeared twice in the past 3 years. The probability of this happening is just too low. Could it be the same person? Just what did he do to cause such a phenomenon to appear twice in a row? We must investigate this matter carefully. The great ones of both realms did not know how to react. At this moment, somewhere in the sky of Firmament Star, a gigantic ferry boat suddenly appeared in the void. A creak could be heard. A figure walked out of a room. The young man was dressed in a spotless white robe. He was so handsome that he looked like an immortal who had descended from the heavens. Unlike the previous mortal aura that had no spiritual power fluctuations, the current Chu Kuangren's aura could not be detected at all. He gave off an unfathomable feeling just by standing there. As Chu Kuangren walked out of the room, the purple haze in the surroundings seemed to have found a home and surged towards him. A huge amount of purple haze surged towards him. Each of these purple hazes contained an extremely mysterious Daoist rhyme. Just one of them could allow a cultivator below the level of a sage to quickly break through to the next realm. However, the number of purple hazes that entered Chu Kuangren's body now numbered in the tens of millions. It was hard to imagine how strong his foundation had become. Inside the spiritual mound, the crisscrossing heavenly punishment shackles had disappeared. Countless amounts of purple haze had entered, causing the sage realm lotus heart to solidify. When the lotus heart reached its peak of 9 petals, less than 10% of the purple haze had been used. Chu Kuangren was speechless. It was too terrifying. The amount of purple haze was just too terrifying. Chu Kuangren had heard of the purple haze 15,000 miles from the east phenomenon when a supreme sage was born. However, that was just a phenomenon. The amount of purple haze that a sage could obtain was definitely not as much as what he had. A huge amount of purple haze filled his body. After the lotus heart solidified, the purple haze began to transform his body. His blood, bones, muscles, and even every cell were constantly being washed by the purple haze and gradually began to transform. Chu Kuangren's supreme sage body was gradually taking shape. He could clearly feel that his life's level was increasing infinitely. His physical strength was increasing at a crazy rate. 100 times, 1,000 times, it seemed to be endless. This kind of thing, if those cultivators who had cultivated their bodies for a lifetime were to know about it, it was unknown how ashamed they would be. It was not an exaggeration to say that Chu Kuangren's physical body was improving at a speed that was comparable to that of others who had been cultivating their physique for a lifetime. No one would believe such a thing if they were to say it out loud. Not long after, Chu Kuangren's supreme sage body was completely formed. At this moment, his body was like a sparkling and translucent gem. His meridians, flesh, and internal organs were all clearly visible. In that body, even a single drop of blood contained a strong sage Daoist rhyme, and a single drop of blood was comparable to 90% of all spirit pills and medicines in the world. At the side, Lan Yu was dumbfounded. Even after Chu Kuangren's body had returned to normal, she still could not come back to her senses. Chu Kuangren's transformation was still ongoing. The foundation of a supreme sage and the body of a supreme sage. After all this was done, he had only used less than 20% of the large amount of purple qi. There was still more than half of the purple qi in his body. The purple qi moved in his body and finally seemed to have found a new target. It quickly surged toward his brain. But when they got close to the brain, they all disappeared. No, they did not disappear. Chu Kuangren could feel that the purple qi was still there. It was just that it had been absorbed by a certain part of him. It was his soul. The purple qi was going to transform his soul. The transformation of the soul could not be seen or touched, but Chu Kuangren could clearly feel it. He realized that his mind was unprecedentedly clear, and some of his abilities had been greatly enhanced. The world in front of him seemed to have changed. As long as he willed it, he could capture the Daoist rhyme between the heavens and the earth at any time. That was the embodiment of his enhanced comprehensive ability. Originally, he had the meditational clarity attribute, so his comprehensive ability was already monstrous. Now that the purple qi had transformed his soul, he even wondered if he could understand an emperor technique in the future. Moreover, comprehensive ability was only one of the side effects of the strengthened soul. The mind power that originated from his soul had also received an unprecedented enhancement. Chu Kuangren moved his mind and an invisible mind power spread out, gradually covering the entire firmament star. That's right, the entire firmament star. Countless information surged in from all directions. There was too much information, such as which family was having a wedding, which family had a cultivation genius, which family had a new baby, which place was having a battle. He even saw Gu Linglong, who was far away in the royal Azure dynasty, dealing with some government affairs. As if she had noticed his gaze, she raised her head and looked at him with a puzzled expression. There was too much mixed information surged into his mind, almost causing Chu Kuangren's brain to crash. He quickly cut off the information from the outside world, but through the information he had just read, he also knew some of the things that had happened in the outside world. For example, the Sky Prides had become sages one after another, and he was being challenged. Also, what was happening in the ancient battlefield right now? A cold glint flashed across his eyes. Good, Daoist Xia, I'll start with you later. The transformation was still ongoing. The soul's endurance seemed to be much higher than his physical body and foundation. Most of the purple qi had been absorbed, leaving only the last 2 to 3%. Chu Kuangren seemed to have thought of something. He held the Descendant Self-Sword by his waist and channeled the remaining purple qi into the sword. In an instant, the Descendant Self-Sword's soul trembled, and a piercing sword hum reverberated in the sky, lasting for a long time. The Descendant Self-Sword's power had risen to another level. It was one step closer to becoming an emperor weapon, and the purple qi's function was to enhance its growth potential. This would be of great help to the sword soul's future growth. As for Chu Kuangren, there was no need to mention it. He had the Supreme Sage's body, Supreme Sage's foundation, and Supreme Sage's spirit. His physical body, foundation, and soul had all reached the limits of the sage realm. Even a sage ruler could not compare to him. his growth potential was even more immeasurable. This was the power of a supreme sage. Perhaps even a supreme sage was not as terrifying as Chu Kuangren. Such generosity was like a gift from the heavens. A heavenly sage. The heavenly punishment seal is both a restraint and a test. Is this the result of passing the test? Chu Kuangren murmured. He did not think about it anymore. With a thought, he instantly arrived above the ancient battlefield. Inside the ancient battlefield, Daoist Xia and the other sages were still immersed in the purple haze 10,000 miles from the east phenomenon. Even after the phenomenon had dissipated, everyone was still in a daze. Someone has become a supreme sage in the firmament star. Who is it? Who is it? Daoist Xia was in disbelief. That was a supreme sage they were talking about. Throughout the history of the firmament star, there were only a handful of them since ancient times. Just when Daoist Xia was in disbelief, the sky suddenly surged, and a terrifying aura descended upon the ancient battlefield. Chapter 465. In the sky above the ancient battlefield, a powerful aura suddenly descended upon them. The pressure was extremely terrifying, like the might of the heavens. Everyone present trembled. Even though they could only sense the pressure through their spiritual senses, their bodies still trembled uncontrollably. Who is it? Whose aura is so powerful? Is it a boundary emperor? Is it a boundary emperor? No, it's not a boundary emperor. A boundary emperor's aura shouldn't be like this. This aura contains a sage's Daoist rhyme. Are you kidding me? Which sage could be so powerful? Hold on. Everyone seemed to have thought of something. Didn't someone become a supreme sage just now? While everyone was guessing, the sky above the ancient battlefield suddenly surged and a large number of clouds converged to form a face. That face was extremely cold and filled with the aura of the heavens. Everyone was extremely familiar with that face. Chu Kuangren. He really did become a supreme sage. The heavenly punishment seal that no one has ever been able to break since ancient times has been broken by him. At that moment, all the great ones in the firmament star were shocked. They felt like their worldview was about to collapse. I heard that you're looking for me? At that moment, Chu Kuangren's face in the sky spoke with a thunderous voice that shook the mountains and rivers for thousands of miles. Daoist Xia looked at the face in the sky with a pale face. He was speechless as his heart was filled with fear. Such an aura, what kind of being did he provoke? Chu Kuangren, stop trying to fool me. It's just an illusion. If you have the guts, show yourself and fight me. Daoist Xia gritted his teeth and shouted. That was right. This must be an illusion. How could there be such a powerful sage in this world? It was impossible. Oh, do you think you're worthy to fight me? However, your actions in the past few days have already sealed your fate. Since you want to die, I don't mind fulfilling your wish. The rest of you, if you don't want to die, leave the ancient battlefield now. Chu Kuangren said. In an instant, Nangong Huang, Murong Xian, and the other captured cultivators rushed out of the ancient battlefield. Meanwhile, the tormented souls in the ancient battlefield were all locked onto by Chu Kuangren's aura and could not move at all. One palm. After most of the people had left, Chu Kuangren spoke. Gather all the power you can and take out all your trump cards. As long as you can take one of my palm strikes, you won't die. Chu Kuangren's voice reverberated throughout the realm. All the cultivators who were paying attention to the ancient battlefield wore solemn expressions. This was an opportunity for them to witness Chu Kuangren's true strength, so they could not miss it. However, at the same time, they had many doubts as well. They could tell that the gigantic face in front of them was merely a manifestation of Chu Kuangren's spiritual thoughts. His real body was not here at all. Then, how was he going to use that palm? Chu Kuangren, don't look down on me too much. I'm a Sky Pride ranked 6th on the Soaring Dragon leaderboard. I can even fight against a sage ruler, let alone take a palm attack from you. Not to mention one palm strike, defeating you isn't impossible. Daoist Xia roared and said angrily. The ominous aura on his body surged and was pushed to the extreme. It actually resonated with the ominous aura of the entire ancient battlefield, forming a gigantic heavenly ferocious Dharma idol that stood proudly against the unparalleled might of the heavens. Chu Kuangren chuckled. "You can give it a try then." As soon as he said that, the sky suddenly began to distort. Waves of horrifying spatial fluctuations appeared. Tathagata rebirth mantra. Chu Kuangren's indifferent voice echoed throughout the sky. A gigantic golden palm suddenly appeared in the distorted sky. It was like the hand of God that could destroy everything in its path. The boundless Buddhist light surged in the void like a tsunami. Wherever it touched, tormented souls were instantly purified. Even the sage-level tormented souls were no exception. No one knew where Chu Kuangren had unleashed that palm attack from, and no one knew how he managed to send it over. However, when that palm attack appeared, everyone shuddered. That terrifying domineering aura and that boundless Buddhist light made them suspect that the owner of that palm attack was a real Buddhist emperor. What? Daoist Sha's expression instantly turned into one of extreme fear. How is this possible? How can a sage unleash such a palm attack? Innate ferocious bell rise. Daoist Sha took out the bell that he had used to slaughter the tormented souls in the ancient battlefield. Waves of sound waves mixed with ferocious qi erupted and continuously attacked the horrifying palm attack that was slowly descending from the sky. The bell's attack was like a pebble falling into a lake, causing ripples to form on the surface of the golden palm. However, even if Daoist Sha pushed his strength to its limit, he still could not stop the downward momentum of the palm attack. The entire ancient battlefield shook violently under that golden Buddhist palm attack. Some of the strong tormented souls who were hiding were sent flying out. "Quick, block that palm attack. We mustn't let that palm attack," the tormented souls said in fear. Chu Kuangren's palm attack was not only meant to kill Daoist Sha. Once it landed on the ancient battlefield, the entire core area would be affected as well. At that moment, every tormented soul in the ancient battlefield, regardless of whether they had gained sentience or not, as long as they could move, they would all attack the descending golden palm attack. The entire ancient battlefield was unprecedentedly united. Boom, 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 countless ferocious qi attacks landed on the giant palm. 10,000 meters, 10,000 meters. The giant palm was getting closer and closer to the ground. Daoist Sha let out a roar, and the divine ferocious avatar behind him raised its arms in an attempt to block that palm attack. However, the moment it made contact, the ferocious qi that was condensed from the divine ferocious avatar began to crumble and disintegrate. In less than 2 breaths' time, the 10,000-meter divine ferocious avatar was completely disintegrated and cleansed by the Buddhist light. Daoist Sha suffered a backlash and spat out a mouthful of blood on the spot before he collapsed to the ground. Compared to the descending giant palm, he was as tiny as an ant. Boom! With an earth-shattering explosion, the golden palm landed on the ancient battlefield's core area, and the terrifying shockwaves spread to the inner circle, the outer circle. It even affected the mountains and rivers that were tens of thousands of kilometers away from the ancient battlefield. That energy was like the gods destroying the world. However, the majestic Buddhist light contained a peaceful qi that did not match that terrifying energy. After the giant palm landed, it spread across the entire ancient battlefield, purifying all the tormented souls and ferocious qi in the ancient battlefield. The impact of that palm attack lasted for more than 10 breaths' time. When the energy dissipated, the crowd used their spiritual thoughts to probe the area, and what they saw was an extremely horrifying scene. The ground of the ancient battlefield's core area immediately caved in, and a gigantic 5-fingered palm print appeared. Ravines spread out from the palm print like a giant net that covered the entire core area. After the majestic Buddhist light spread, not a single tormented soul remained. Even the ferocious qi that lingered in the air had dissipated completely. In other words, the entire ancient battlefield was gone. One of the 10 great forbidden areas had been destroyed by Chu Kuangren with a single palm attack. Everyone was dumbfounded, and they were so shocked that they could not speak. It seems like they can't handle it. In the sky, Chu Kuangren's gigantic face that covered the sun said indifferently. Upon hearing that, the crowd did not know what to say. You've destroyed the entire ancient battlefield. How are we supposed to handle it? How are we supposed to handle it? How many people in this world can handle it? Chapter 466. The news of Chu Kuangren breaking the heavenly punishment seal, reappearing in the world, killing the sage Daoist Sha with a single palm strike, and destroying the ancient battlefield spread like wildfire across the entire firmament star. Almost everyone knew about it. All those who doubted and slandered him were speechless. No one dared to say anything bad about him anymore. That shocking palm strike had shattered everyone's delusions. Inside the heavenly golden palace, sage ruler Changqin had naturally seen Chu Kuangren's palm strike too. His eyes were filled with unprecedented fear. It was too terrifying. Chu Kuangren's palm strike was too terrifying. He dared not imagine how powerful his opponent was. Even a sage ruler could not compare to that kind of power. No, even a boundary emperor would not be able to compare to that kind of power. Did that person become an emperor directly? Sage ruler Changqin thought in an exaggerated manner. I can't believe Chu Kuangren is this powerful. It's not without reason that he's ranked first on the soaring dragon leaderboard. Xiao Jingchen murmured. Even he had to admit that Chu Kuangren was powerful. Forget Daoist Sha, even he would not be able to withstand that palm strike. At that moment, he was suddenly glad that Chu Kuangren did not accept the challenge. Otherwise, he did not know what would have happened. Hey, that's too much. Is this palm strike something a sage can unleash? Even the forbidden sky prides of the 9 heavens are no better than that. On a mountain peak, a young man gulped as he looked at the ancient battlefield. That palm strike had shocked him. Beside him was another person. It was a man with a white jade folding fan. He looked at the ancient battlefield with a solemn expression as well. Is that the power of a supreme sage? This person is not to be underestimated. We must report this to our clans as soon as possible, the man said. Beside him, the young man nodded. On the other side, the black-robed lady with the metal mask had also seen that shocking palm strike. F***ck me, is that something a sage can do? Chu Kuangren. I can't believe there's someone like him in Firmament Star. Sob. A sobbing sound came from the black mist behind the black-robed lady. TSK, so you're afraid now? In that case, if you encounter this fellow in the future, you should consciously run far away. The black-robed woman curled her lips. Let's go. It's time for us to make a trip to Acheron Manor. It's time to take back what doesn't belong to them, said the black-robed woman indifferently as streams of Daoist rhymes intertwined in her palm. Above the illusionary mirage, the void in front of Chu Kuangren distorted for a moment before returning to normal. He smiled in satisfaction. This spatial conveyor technique is quite useful. The spatial conveyor technique was a god-tier divine ability that Chu Kuangren had obtained from the gacha roulette. It allowed him to overlap 2 different spaces and transfer objects from one space to the other. The reason why Chu Kuangren was able to unleash such a terrifying palm attack on the ancient battlefield from 1,000,000 miles away was because of this divine ability. He used the Tathagata rebirth mantra here and used the space transportation technique to transport the power of this monarch art to the sky above the ancient battlefield. This kind of mystique was really convenient and easy to use. If used well, it would have unimaginable effects. And the power of this Taoist connotation is beyond my imagination. Should I say that it's really divine punishment? Chu Kuangren murmured as he looked at his palm. There were still traces of Daoist rhymes in the center of his palm that had yet to dissipate. This Daoist rhyme far surpassed any Daoist rhymes that Chu Kuangren had encountered before. It was not a difference in power, but a difference in essence. This Daoist rhyme seemed to be able to suppress all other Daoist rhymes. Even the emperor suppressing all techniques Daoist rhyme would not be able to suppress this Daoist rhyme because this was the heavenly punishment Daoist rhyme. The heavenly punishment Daoist rhyme was the power that Chu Kuangren had mastered after he had fully understood the heavenly punishment seal. It was also his biggest gain in the past few years. This heavenly punishment Daoist rhyme could be infused into all of his attacks, multiplying his combat strength. It was like the might of the heavens, as if he was punishing on behalf of the heavens. Chu Kuangren retracted his aura and looked at the innate ferocious altar not far away. He noticed that the white-robed general had long lost consciousness as if he had fainted. Chu Kuangren asked Lan Yu, "How's he doing recently?" "He's been holding on, but he fainted yesterday after absorbing all the ferocious qi on the altar," Lan Yu answered. "All right, I understand now." Chu Kuangren nodded slightly. He activated his Eye of Revelation and observed the white-robed general. His foundation has been restored. Physique transformation in progress, 98% progress. Just a little more. Not long after, when the Eye of Revelation showed that the white-robed general's physique transformation had reached 100%, he suddenly opened his eyes. A terrifying ferocious qi gushed out from his body and engulfed a radius of a few hundred kilometers. The surrounding clouds rumbled as they trembled in shock. That surge of energy was not much weaker than Daoist Sha's. No, it might even be stronger than that. With the complete infallible tormented physique and the cultivation base of a sage ruler, the white-robed general can now be considered one of the top existences in Firmament Star. Chu Kuangren chuckled. He too had the infallible tormented physique, but it had yet to reach its complete form. However, that was no longer important to him. The Supreme Sage's body was more outstanding than any other Daoist physique. There was no need for him to purposely pursue other Daoist physiques. "I owe you one more time. This life of mine is yours now." The white-robed general walked down the innate ferocious altar and stood before Chu Kuangren. His tone was calm but unusually firm. Chu Kuangren did not say anything. Gaining the white-robed general's loyalty on this trip to the ancient battlefield was definitely worth it. From now on, the Black Heaven sect would have another top-tier sage ruler. Even without Chu Kuangren, not many would dare to provoke them. "Come, let's return to the Black Heaven sect first. I'll bring you to meet your descendants," Chu Kuangren said. He kept the elusive mirage into his yin and yang ring. He then grabbed Lan Yu and the white-robed general with one hand and smiled. "No matter what I do, don't resist." Although they did not know what Chu Kuangren meant, the two of them had complete trust in him, so they nodded. Then, a mysterious spatial energy enveloped the three of them, and the next moment, the three of them disappeared on the spot. When they reappeared, they had already traveled 1,000,000 kilometers and arrived outside the astonishing cloud of C's formation. That teleportation ability shocked Lan Yu and the white-robed general. "Spatial energy. I didn't expect Brother Chu to have mastered spatial energy as well," the white-robed general said in surprise. "Heh, I actually know quite a few things." Chu Kuangren chuckled. Naturally, he had used the spatial conveyor technique to teleport the three of them outside the astonishing cloud of C's formation. The reason they did not enter the Black Heaven sect directly was because the astonishing cloud of C's formation had a special ability that could confine space. Back when the Heavenly Golden Palace's Purple Void Sage tried to break the formation, he could not escape using the Shift Talisman. Besides that, Chu Kuangren also realized that using the spatial conveyor technique to transport a human body was much more taxing than transporting pure energy. After all, humans would resist, and the slightest difference in strength would affect the effect of the transportation. If it were not for Lan Yu and the white-robed general's complete trust in Chu Kuangren, it would not have been so easy to transport them to the designated location. Of course, if Chu Kuangren's strength was much higher than the target's, it would be futile no matter how much the target resisted. All in all, Chu Kuangren was more satisfied with the spatial conveyor technique. He felt that there were many more possibilities for this divine ability to be developed. Chapter 467. When Chu Kuangren returned to the Black Heaven sect, Elder Ruyan and the others welcomed him. Everyone knew that Chu Kuangren had broken the heavenly punishment seal, so they were extremely excited. They were happier than if they were celebrating the new year. Elder Ruyan, the astonishing cloud of C's formation will be lifted tomorrow. The Black Heaven sect no longer needs to hide from the world. Chu Kuangren smiled. In the past, he was sealed away by the heavenly punishment seal. However, now that the seal had been lifted, he was not afraid of anyone. The Black Heaven sect could now walk around Firmament Star openly. He wanted to see who had the guts to go against the Black Heaven sect. Yes. Elder Ruyan nodded excitedly. Activating the astonishing cloud of seas formation consumed a large amount of resources every day. Now that it had been lifted, they only needed to activate it when necessary, which would save them a lot of resources. Moreover, the Black Heaven sect could now officially roam the world. By the way, where's Xianxia? I've brought someone for her to meet, Chu Kuangren asked. Xianxia? She's not back yet, right? Elder Ruyan said. The outstanding disciples of the Black Heaven sect had already roamed the world before Chu Kuangren had even unlocked his seal to gain experience in the mortal world. Xianxia was one of them. Then send a message for her to return, Chu Kuangren said. All right. White-robed brother, I'll have to trouble you to wait a little longer. No problem. The white-robed general was not in a hurry. He had been here for so many years, so he could afford to wait a little longer. Elder Ruyan and the others sized up the white-robed general. They could not help but feel curious about one of the 7 great ghost stories. The white-robed general was a loner, so he did not talk much with Elder Ruyan and the others. He found a quiet place in the Black Heaven sect and stayed there for the time being. With the lifting of the astonishing cloud of seas formation, the Black Heaven sect reappeared in the world. News of the incident began to spread. Everyone knew that Chu Kuangren's seal had been lifted. That peerless madman had returned. Towards this, countless heaven's favorites lamented and hated the unfairness of the heavens. Now that Chu Kuangren has returned, there's no place for us to shine in this world. Heavenly Dao, you're so unfair. Sai, it's been 3 years. He's back after 3 years, raising the ancient battlefield to the ground. He's many times more terrifying than he was 3 years ago. A person like him won't fall so easily. Who says his time has passed? Isn't it here again? The whole world was talking about it. The name Chu Kuangren had become the focus of everyone in the world. Just as everyone was shocked by Chu Kuangren's return, a few forces were panicking and terrified. They were Acheron Manor, Ethereal Rapture, Sacred Temple of Death, and other forces that had participated in the siege against Black Heaven sect. The current Chu Kuangren had already struck fear into their hearts. In the past, they had expended a lot of resources to annihilate the Black Heaven sect. Even after 3 years, they still had not recovered from their losses, and their strength was far from what it used to be. Now that they were facing Chu Kuangren, who could blast the ancient battlefield with his palm, they were no match for him at all. What could they use to fight him? Several forces quickly held a meeting to discuss this matter. Inside the heavenly Golden Palace, the leaders of the top orthodoxies were gathered together. What should we do now? Chu Kuangren is just too powerful now that he's unsealed. We're no match for him at all. If he were to come knocking on our door one day, the few of us sage rulers would probably be slapped to death by him. ***. Since ancient times, no one has been able to break the heavenly punishment seal. How did he do it? It doesn't matter how he did it. The problem is, how are we going to deal with his revenge? I'm sure you all know what happened to Craggy Ocean Tower. Now that he's even more terrifying than before, our fates might be even worse. What should we do to save ourselves? Why don't we just surrender? We can't beat him anyway. Surrender? Are you kidding me? Even if we surrender, do you think Chu Kuangren will just let us go? Stop dreaming. We are already mortal enemies with him. The few orthodoxies sect leaders were arguing endlessly. They did not look like the leaders of orthodoxies at all. However, it was not surprising. Not many people could remain calm in the face of disaster. Even these sage rulers were no exception. All right, stop arguing. Sage ruler Changqin stopped the crowd and said, "We're no match for Chu Kuangren, but there are others who are." Brother Changqin, are you referring to the elders of the forbidden area? The great bottomless chasm dweller asked. That's right. Sage ruler Changqin nodded solemnly. It won't be easy to get them to help us. They've sealed themselves in the forbidden area for so many years. Do you think they'll agree? The Acheron Manor Lord said. In the past, our heavenly golden palace's boundary Emperor Chong Kuang once went to the Nether Abyss Valley and had some dealings with a senior there. We can be considered to be on good terms with them. If we're prepared with sufficient rewards, it's not impossible to hire them, Sage Ruler Changqin said after taking a deep breath. Everyone revealed hopeful expressions when they heard this. If that's the case, the Ethereal Rapture is willing to offer a kilogram of celestial core to get them to help us. The Ethereal Rapture sect leader was the first to speak. The Acheron Manor is willing to offer 10 billion soul stones. Who do you think our elders are? Why would they be interested in soul stones? The Bottomless Chasm is willing to offer 10 treasures of the deep sea. The sect leaders of the various orthodoxies stated the price they were willing to pay. Each of those treasures was enough to cause a bloodbath in the outside world. Everyone, please prepare everything you can and send them here. I'll personally depart for the Nether Abyss Valley tomorrow. Sage Ruler Changqin said. Just when the sect leaders were thinking about how to deal with Chu Kuangren, the Black Heaven sect made an announcement. 3 days later, Chu Kuangren would deal with the Heavenly Golden Palace, the Ethereal Rapture, the Acheron Manor, the Sacred Palace of Death, and the Bottomless Chasm. The entire firmament star was shocked when the announcement was made. Everyone had thought that Chu Kuangren would deal with the orthodoxies that had previously attacked the Black Heaven sect after he broke the seal. However, they did not expect it to happen so soon. Chu Kuangren is giving an announcement to the 5 orthodoxies, telling those cultivators who don't want to die to leave immediately. Tisk, I wonder how the 5 orthodoxies are going to deal with this. Even if it's Chu Kuangren, I'm afraid it'll take him some time to deal with them one by one. Things are going to get interesting in the coming days. 3 years ago, the 6 orthodoxies were supposed to deal with Chu Kuangren easily. Who would have thought that the million-strong allied army would be defeated? 3 years later, the orthodoxies will have to face a great catastrophe. The impact of the battle 3 years ago has lasted until today. It's almost time for it to end. Many great ones in the firmament star were watching the impending battle, and the 5 orthodoxies were even more panicked. They hurriedly prepared the most precious items they could and sent them to the Heavenly Golden Palace. Sage Ruler Changqin had also rushed to the Nether Abyss Valley the next day. All of a sudden, an undercurrent was brewing. Everyone was paying close attention to when Chu Kuangren would depart for the 5 orthodoxies. However, the puzzling thing was that Chu Kuangren had been staying in the Black Heaven sect since the beginning. Chapter 468. The Nether Abyss Valley was one of the 10 great forbidden areas of Firmament Star. Among the 10 great forbidden areas, the ancient battlefield had the shortest history and was the least dangerous. The other 9 forbidden areas were much more dangerous than the ancient battlefield, and they all had a long history that was a few times longer than the ancient battlefield. The Nether Abyss Valley was shrouded in an eerie atmosphere all year round. Every cultivator who entered this place would have a strange energy invading their mind. Since ancient times, only a few could walk out of this place alive. At this time, on a small path in the Nether Abyss Valley, Sage Ruler Changqin was carefully moving forward. His surroundings were eerily quiet, and not even the sound of insects could be heard. The eerie atmosphere shrouded him. Before he knew it, a thin layer of cold sweat had formed on his forehead. He felt like his mind was in great torment, and eerie illusions flashed before his eyes from time to time. He even saw Chu Kuangren suddenly appear in front of him. The Nether Abyss Valley could evoke the deepest fear in a person's heart, and Chu Kuangren was the person that Sage Ruler Changqin feared the most. If this goes on, I'm going to be tortured by these illusions. The Nether Abyss Valley is indeed a forbidden area. Even a sage ruler like me can't stay here for long. I really don't know how those seniors managed to settle down here. They're just too powerful. Sage Ruler Changqin relied on his sage ruler cultivation and mental fortitude to persevere and move forward. Suddenly, he heard the cawing of crows. He had never seen a single living creature in the Nether Abyss Valley, but now he heard the cawing of crows. Sage ruler Changqing's eyes lit up. Did you find it? He walked towards the source of the cawing. Soon he saw a wooden house from afar. In front of the wooden house, there were a few crows perched on a withered tree branch. I found it. Sage ruler Changqing was delighted and hurried forward. However, at that moment, the crows on the tree branch turned to look at him. Their dark red eyes were filled with wariness as they cawed. The cawing was sharp and piercing as if it could pierce through one's soul. Sage ruler Changqing could not help but shudder and stop in his tracks. He looked at the crow a few times with some fear. Then he took out a black wooden token and said, I am the current palace lord of the heavenly golden palace, Sage ruler Changqing. I'm here to see Senior Wuyue. Oh, Blackwood Order. Who are you to Changguang? The crows on the branches suddenly opened their mouths. Their voices were sharp, and it was the voice of a woman. Sacred ruler Changqing was slightly surprised to see this, but he did not ask further. He answered, Zhang Guang is the progenitor of our god palace. Why didn't he come himself? Forefather Changguang has already passed away. Hearing that, a look of surprise appeared in the eyes of the crows. They then flew into the air and gathered together, turning into a tall and beautiful woman dressed in a black dress. Wu Yu raised her hand and grabbed the black wooden token in Sage ruler Changqing's hand. Then she said calmly, Dead? No matter what, Zhang Guang is a quasi-emperor. Aside from us, who are in the Forbidden Land, no one in the outside world can kill him. How did he die? Sage ruler Changqing told her everything that had happened in the outside world in the past few years. Boundary Emperor Wuyue was very surprised to hear that. A supreme sage has appeared in the firmament star. That's rare. No wonder the heavenly Tao was shaken and such energy waves appeared. Then she fiddled with the wooden token and said, since he's a supreme sage, his combat strength should be strong enough to rival a quasi-emperor. Although I'm friends with Changguang, my true form is still in hibernation. There's no need for me to fight a sage with a bright future just for your sake. Sage ruler Changqing seemed to have expected such a reaction from her. He took out a yin and yang ring and handed it over. It contained the gifts prepared by the orthodoxies. Senior, do you know that in this great era, there are all kinds of opportunities of fortune? Some of them are also very useful to quasi-emperors. Senior, you're in hibernation here, so it's inconvenient for you to travel outside. If you can help us overcome this calamity, the heavenly golden palace is willing to serve you. Sage ruler Changqing said. Wuyue took the yin and yang ring and pondered. She looked into the depths of the Nether Abyss Valley. There were many quasi-emperors like her in hibernation. It was not just the Nether Abyss Valley. The other forbidden areas had more or less people like them. However, in the past, the Great Tao did not exist, and it was difficult for emperors to appear. Therefore, these people could only live in seclusion in the forbidden areas and ignore the affairs of the world. Some of them even chose to hibernate to preserve their combat strength in order to wait for the opportunity to become an emperor. Now that the era of emperors had arrived, those in the forbidden areas would not be able to sit still any longer. It was time for her to make a proper plan. The heavenly golden palace was a top-notch orthodoxy after all. If she could use it, it might be useful in the future. However, was it worth it to make an enemy out of a supreme sage? Boundary Emperor Wuyue weighed the pros and cons. Sage ruler Changqing gritted his teeth and took out a light blue supreme medicine. Waves of mysterious Daoist rhymes emanated from it. This is an emperor-grade supreme medicine. Boundary Emperor Wuyue's eyes lit up. That's right, this is an emperor-grade supreme medicine. This medicine can extend a boundary emperor's life by more than 10,000 years. Please accept it, Senior Wuyue. Even a boundary emperor had a limited lifespan. The older a boundary emperor was, the weaker their physical strength would be, and the more limited their combat strength would be. Otherwise, there would not be so many boundary emperors who chose to hibernate in the forbidden areas to preserve their strength. An emperor-grade supreme medicine that could extend a boundary emperor's life by more than 10,000 years was definitely a huge temptation to a boundary emperor. Even though boundary emperor Wuxia was still a long way from heavenly deterioration stage 5, she still did not want to reject it. Chang Guang and I have a history of discussing Taoism. Since you're so kind, I'll go on your behalf. Boundary Emperor Wuxia said calmly before grabbing the monarch's supreme treasure herb in Sage Ruler Changqin's hand. Thank you, Senior Wuxia. Sage Ruler Changqin was overjoyed. 3 days had passed since the Black Heaven sect announced that they would deal with the 5 orthodoxies of the Heavenly Golden Palace. It was now nighttime, and when the sun rose, it would be time for Chu Kuangren to strike. However, what puzzled everyone was that Chu Kuangren had not left the Black Heaven sect at all in the past 3 days. How was he going to deal with the 5 orthodoxies then? Late at night, the bright moon hung high in the sky. Its moonlight was like water, and the stars were dazzling. Black Heaven sect, inside the towering Heaven Palace. Chu Kuangren sat with his legs crossed, familiarizing himself with the power within his body. Suddenly, his eyes opened, and his gaze traveled hundreds of kilometers to the Black Heaven sect's mountain entrance. A lady in a black dress slowly walked towards him. There was not a single trace of aura on this lady, as if she had blended in with the night. She walked into the Black Heaven sect as if there was no one around. Aside from Chu Kuangren, no one else could see her. You sure have guts to come uninvited, you thief. Chu Kuangren's voice rang in Boundary Emperor Wuxia's ears. The next moment he stepped on the moonlight and slowly walked towards her. Upon seeing Chu Kuangren before her, Boundary Emperor Wuxia's eyes revealed a hint of awe. Everyone says that Black Heaven sect leader Chu has an otherworldly appearance. Now that I've seen you in person, I finally know that the rumors are true. You're tuning in to the Wang Lin's Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.